Please be seated. Good evening and welcome to the full council meeting. I'm Councillor Tom Bennett, the Mayor. You may notice I have a slightly hoarse voice this evening, so if all members could make sure I don't have to speak any more than is absolutely possible, then I think that would be in all our interests. So I thank you for your assistance on that. In June 2017, 72 of our residents tragically lost their lives in the fire at Grenfell Tower. I ask every member of the council to pay our deepest and continuing respects in the conventional manner by marking the moment with 72 seconds silence now. Would everyone please stand? Thank you. Item 1 is the minutes of the previous meeting. They have been circulated. Does everyone agree they are a correct record? Thank you. That's all right. Item 2, does any member wish to declare a disclosable pecuniary or any other significant interest in any item being considered at tonight's meeting? No. Item 3, special announcement. So the nominations for the Mayor's Awards for 2025-2026 are now open. It's the 26th year of the Mayor's Awards. And as you may well know, they celebrate the achievements of individuals, groups and organisations who have made an outstanding contribution to life in the borough. It's live on the website. There's 3 categories: individual contribution, young achiever and voluntary and community sector organisation. I'm sure we all know lots of people who do fantastic work in the borough who should be recognised, so please do consider making a submission for those awards. Item 4, Chief Executive, are there any apologies for absence or lateness?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have received apologies from Councillors Cyron, El-Nagi, Noor, Petit, Wheel, Adam and Whedon Sands. I've received apologies for lateness from Councillor Thaxter. And I have got one further announcement, which is that following the increase in the size of the independent group, I've received a request to take a report on representation on committees as an urgent item under Standing Order 20.
Okay. Excellent. And just to be clear, to avoid delaying public speaking under Standing Order 1.3, I shall take this item before the leadership team reports rather than before the public speaking. Item 5 is public speaking, so I invite those who have registered in advance to address the council in turn for up to 5 minutes each, and then a member of the leadership team and a member of the principal minority party will respond to you for up to 2 minutes each. We have 6 people registered to speak today, and I want to thank all of you for coming here today to the Chamber to ask your questions of us. We do appreciate it. For the benefit of members and all those watching, can I ask all of you to start your 5 minutes by saying who you are and if you are speaking on your own behalf or for others. So we start with Mr. Bradley Roberts. Would you please address the Council?
Hi, my name is Bradley Roberts, and yes, I'm addressing a few other people as well. So myself here tonight to address a matter relating to RBKC's flagship tennis venue, Holland Park, specifically the RBKC tennis coaching arrangements that are overseen by Parks Management Contractors, ID Verd, which, as you most are no doubt aware, has been plagued for some time by ongoing financial irregularities, contravention of safeguarding, on-selling of public courts at upwards of 150% profit, nepotism, etc., etc. And of course, several whistleblowers losing their jobs as a result of honourably exposing such and other realities, etc., etc. But of particular interest to you councillors and others, surely being that the council hierarchy are not only unaware of the council sharing tennis-related income made by ID Verd from Holland Park and other RBKC venues, but equally that they seemingly don't want to know about this, and indeed other concerning anomalies, all of which I detailed in my 3rd of October 2024 email to RBKC Director of Resources, Mike Curtis, and a further 10th of July 2025 email to him, which I, of course, copied all RBKC councillors in on. At least that's what it comes across as, in that why else would I have to wait until last Thursday, the 16th of October, for a response from Mr. Curtis, some 385 days to be exact. And indeed, if it weren't for my attendance here tonight, I'm pretty sure that I would still be waiting for a response from Mr. Curtis. No doubt Mr. Curtis got wind of me being here tonight through the political grapevine, etc. All in, it truly being perplexing as to why Mr. Curtis would choose not to answer my 2024 email in a timely and courteous manner, especially that its focal point was the council seemingly being cheated out of tens of thousands of pounds in income annually since 2011. For in RBKC Director of Leisure, Peter Ramage's accurate and detailed 6th of July 2011 report, which I included in my emails to Mr. Curtis and you all, Mr. Ramage not only confirms the collective amount that RBKC tennis coaches were making at the time, but also that going forward, Quadrin ID Verd would share tennis-related income with the council. Yet among other anomalies, RBKC Director of Audit, David Hughes, whom, as with Mr. Curtis, we have nothing whatsoever personal against, in his 16th of July 2024 whitewash of a review incorrectly states that all tennis income goes to ID Verd. Although possibly an oversight, others believe Mr. Hughes may well have been misinformed by the RBKC Leisure and Parks team, who have managed the contract between ID Verd and RBKC since 2011. And yet, despite this glaringly obvious error, among others, in Mr. Hughes's review, despite his review being nothing but that, a review, not an investigation, despite none of the accused being actually interviewed properly, despite Mr. Hughes unwittingly relying on none other than the RBKC Leisure and Parks team to look into things on his behalf, who, yes, lo and behold, were one of the accused, etc., etc. Mr. Curtis, nevertheless, in his last Thursday, 384-day late, 3-sentence response, emphatically maintains that he sees no reason to look into matters further. Indeed, myself and fellow whistleblower Andrew Proctor sharing with Mr. Hughes many well-documented, eye-opening happenings, such as when a tennis coach colleague went to the RBKC head of leisure with a protected disclosure regarding irregularities relating to the head tennis coach. The head of leisure promptly informing the head coach, who then instantly dismissed the respective colleague, which, aside from hardly the way to deal with a disclosure, it being patently unethical and unacceptable that an RBKC official functions as the eyes and ears of a private tennis provider, whether out of friendship or perhaps economic gain. Yet David Hughes surprisingly deeming there to be no reason for anybody's head to roll as a result of this and similar reprehensible happenings, that having been comprehensively presented to him by myself and Andrew and other coaches. But yes, anyways, thanks for hearing me out this evening, and whatever interest and time yourselves could give to this matter would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Roberts. Councillor Will, would you respond?
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Roberts, for coming tonight. And I'm really sorry, both on behalf of ourselves and Mr. Curtis, that you had to come here to get a reply. That's clearly not as it should be. As you... in fact, I do recall, I think it was Andrew Proctor who originally wrote to me about this a few years ago. And at that time, I referred to the matter to David Hughes and asked him to do a full audit, as I thought that was the right and proper thing to do, because you came yourselves with these very serious allegations, concerns, however we might describe them. Obviously, what you're telling us tonight is that you don't feel they've been answered properly. Obviously, I can't get into the detail of that now, and I'm not the right person to either. But I do follow up with this myself or afterwards, and you know, we can follow up properly with you. Thank you.
Councillor Ali.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Roberts, for coming this evening. This is an important issue for not just the tents and the management of council-owned spaces, but it's specifically about the funding and what has been used and how the council managed its resources. If I look back 20-odd years ago, nearly 25 years ago, I remember where the area you've mentioned, I actually paid for a few lessons. Well, clearly I was not successful 25 years ago, but I actually used that court in Holland Park, and I remember where it is, and I understand the area when I was a little bit younger than this time. But to the point that you've raised this evening, as a Labour group of councillors, we will make sure to meet with you and to really find out what exactly happened. It's not just about the officers, it's the council leadership which is in charge of the funding, of the resources, and the management of our residents. So in that further matter, if you will be more than happy to meet with you in person, we will be happy with you to meet and to know more about this situation and what can be corrected. Not what happened gone in the past, but what can be done. And that's specifically not just the tennis court, but across the council-owned land and properties, and how the funding is being collected and how it's been used, so that we will make sure we deliver the best possible service for our residents. Once again, thank you very much for coming, and we're looking forward to meeting you in person. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Roberts. Mr. David O'Connell, would you please address the council?
Thank you, Mayor and councillors. I've come today to speak to you about my estate where I live. I'm from Lancaster West Estate, where the Grenfell Tower fire happened. And as many people may be aware, we've been undergoing a refurbishment there for 8.5 years now. And one of the things I want to talk about is the engagement that council has made. They have made many promises following the Grenfell Tower inquiry that they failed to engage with the residents there in the refurbishment of the tower. But it seems they are repeating the same mistakes with engagement with residents and with the way the refurbishment is being conducted this time. So I would like to step through perhaps the scrutiny report, which after much toing and froing, Councillor Claire Simmons was able to hold on the estate itself, where many residents came and talked about their experience of the refurbishment. And the council accepted partially two of the main and most important parts of that. And one of those was that they would look for external scrutiny. Now, one of the major failings of all of this has been that the council has been deciding what is right and what is wrong. And the experience I get from residents is that has resulted in their lives being made a misery. Because basically, we have now faced 8.5 years of living in a near building site, constant interruption, and this is on an estate where people are traumatised and suffering from PTSD. But the council's response has been to engage, yes. They have held many meetings, they have showed us designs, they've talked about things, but they never really asked us about what was important. For example, on my block, they are fitting cladding. Yet no one ever asked us if we wanted cladding, they only asked us what colour it would be. And when that went to building scrutiny, they rejected the actual designs that people had chosen. One of the things I also find interesting, and has been highlighted many times before, is that when people write to the council and they point out things, like for example, they talked about the solar panels on Talbot Grove House, and the solar panels were not connected. A resident actually took pictures of those solar panels. But instead, the council spent a year writing back, explaining that no, they were saving lots of money for residents, they were generating large amounts of electricity, even to the extent of sending us a picture of a dashboard showing how much energy they were saving with these solar panels. Now, it brings to mind a quote that the council that hears but does not listen, because when people write and point out failings or bring things up to the council, the only response seems to be to ignore, to carry on as before, and nothing changes. And the main reason I have come here today is there seems to be no accountability among the people running this. And one of the major failings of your response was to say everything is going great on the and use a report published by the LSE that everyone was happy about the refurbishment. A report which had been pointed out at the scrutiny meeting was actually based on facts from 2019, and maybe if people had been through the following 6 odd years of refurbishment, they would be slightly less enthusiastic about saying they were happy with it. Now, we called in that meeting for the council to sit and look at what they were doing with the refurbishment. And what has happened is the council are just plugging on and hoping they'll get the money from the government to cover it. Now, I hope, for the sake of my estate, that we get that money, but I also hope that the council takes the opportunity to begin that reset and start talking to people. Because it seems to me more and more the council don't want to hear voices that question what they're doing. They only want to hear voices that agree with what they're doing. They have gone to the extent of ignoring things that have happened on the estate and queries about the people doing the representation. Now, quite understandably, different parts of the estate have wanted to be represented by themselves for their blocks or for their parts of the estate, because it's the largest estate in Kensington and Chelsea. It's huge. And not everyone can answer for what things that are happening to them individually in their block. So Treadgold House was given the opportunity to have their own residents' association be listened to, yet the walkways, the most affected part of Lancaster West, has been ignored. In fact, the walkways, the council have treated in exactly the same way as they treated Grenfell Tower when they asked for their own residents' association.
All the time. It's constant. They do it all the time.
So, thank you.
Yes.
Could you let the gentleman...
Care about brown asbestos in estates.
Sir, please could you let the gentleman finish? Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, the gentleman before pointed out that the council, though having failings in their own departments pointed out to them many times, ignored it and carried on as before. And we begin to wonder, what is the point of engaging at all with the council if they will not listen and change what they do? And one of the things they promised to the residents...
Mr O'Connell, that's 5 minutes. Do you mind wrapping up?
Yeah, sure, I'm just wrapping up now.
15 seconds.
And one of the things that was asked of them by the previous Secretary of State was that they would become an exemplar. Yet I do not see very much evidence of that at the moment.
Thank you very much. Councillor McVeigh, would you like to respond?
Thank you, David. Thank you for coming again. And I do appreciate you coming. And this is part of, as you say, the listening and the feedback. And we've met many times. I'm often on the estate. So in regards to us listening and adapting and changing, I think we do that a lot, actually. So there's a lot of questions you want to unpack here. I've been scribbling lots of notes as you've been writing. I was prepared to talk more about the cultural change, because I thought you were going to be asking about cultural change. But I suppose this is also part of it. It's part of the Listening Council, and we are a completely changed council, and our culture has changed. So in regards to the work in the estate, you referenced the scrutiny meeting, which of course I was at, and thank you, Councillor Simmons, who held it on the estate. It was attended by quite a number of residents. I think a fair number were leaseholders from recollection. But I also want to balance that with the chair of the RA, Mushtaq, who's sitting over there, who... He is still chair of the Residents' Association, and he held a meeting in Parliament which was attended by about 40 residents who said they wanted the work in the estate to continue. So we're very mindful, we're hearing lots of different voices. And of course, as you say, with almost 1,000 households on the estate, it's one of our biggest estates, there is going to be different opinions and different views. We have committed...
Illegal is illegal.
I don't think
Excuse
you're
me.
actually...
Excuse me, sir.
You're
Sir.
actually not on the Lancaster West estate, so if you mind
moment,
being
Councillor,
quiet.
one moment, sorry. Gentlemen, sir,
Sir.
Sir, Mr. Cannon, the question has been asked. Mr. Cannon, please listen to me. A question has been asked. It is only courteous that the gentleman that asks the question hears the response. The lady is now speaking. Please let her finish. It is not... It is,
Speaking rubbish.
sir, please let the lady finish.
I'm owed £20,000
Sir.
for my surveying services to you, to all of you.
Sir,
Children in the borough.
sir, you're now
That are child abusers. There's officers that are legally going to...
Sir, please listen to me.
Don't outshout me just because you've got a microphone.
Sir, please listen to me. It is clear that we cannot conduct the meeting in this format. The gentleman has asked a question, it's being responded to. You are very welcome to sit down and listen to that response. But if you are going to continue to disrupt the meeting in this way, I will have to ask you to leave. So please take a seat and listen to the lady's response.
I suggest you ask me to leave because I won't be quiet and I won't be silenced.
Okay, well, in which case, please could you leave?
No, I will not. It's a public meeting and I can be here.
So,
You've got young children with a brown asbestos on a site at Manchester.
so we cannot...
Your officers are carrying out child abuse.
Sir, we can...
Stolen monies from me. They won't return any of the monies.
Sir, we cannot conduct the meeting in this way. If you're going to continue to interrupt the meeting like this, I will have to ask you to leave.
No, I'm not. This is a public meeting. I'm not prepared to do that.
Sir, you're disrupting the meeting. Please may you leave the chamber.
I think I'm telling the truth.
Sir, please leave the chamber.
No, I will not.
Councillors, we're going to have to adjourn the meeting. Please be seated. Right, take two. Sorry about all that, particularly to members of the public who have come to ask questions or watch. There's a real waste of your time, and sorry you had to go through all that. But we'll get straight back to it. So I think Councillor McVeigh, you were responding. Sorry to throw you right back into the middle, but would you like to complete your response?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for your calm handling of the matter. So I think I was in the midst of saying, completely recognising the scrutiny meeting on the estate. Thank you very much. It was very helpful. But also I wanted to acknowledge that the meeting that the chair of the RA, Mushtaq, held in Parliament, where lots of residents were, we heard the different side. So we are very mindful of many different voices. And we are completely committed, if we get the funding from the government, to proceeding with the work, because that is what we're hearing from the majority of residents. But again, David, to your point about are we just waiting and waiting and waiting, we have said that I have asked the team to put forward two options in regard to the Camelfords and the Clarendons, to say, can we do a basics first and get just the windows done and then future-proof them, that if we do get this money, which the government we are hoping is going to give us, but probably highly unlikely in the current financial circumstances, but who knows, we will then go back and do phase 2 on those. But we are going to do the full amount of works that we have agreed for the walkways. And so we are definitely doing that. So anyway, I would just like to sum up that thank you again for coming here. And my door is always open. I'm on the estate a lot. I go around all our estates a lot. And not a week goes by where I don't meet a resident or visit an estate. So, and we do act on what we hear. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Simmons. No. Okay. Okay. Councillor Simmons.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, David, for coming. And by that, I don't just mean thank you for coming. I mean, actually, thank you from me to you for raising these really important issues which we, as your representatives, have been battling with for many years. The need for culture change was acknowledged by the Council back in 2017, and yet here we are in 2025 with residents still waiting for it. The phrase culture change has been bandied around in promises and commitments over these last years, with so far very little being said in terms of what the Council actually understands by this. You have raised, I think, a point which is particularly pertinent around denial, that, and I think also the previous speaker as well, that when issues are raised, far too often residents are told everything's fine, there's nothing to see here, move along now. And that is not good for the council, it's not good for the residents, but it's also not good for the individuals who are raising the issue. So I did have a longish response for you around the council's commitments, and the question is, why have we got so many commitments, the 12 principles, the Charter for Public Participation, the values in the council constitution, none of which seem to be being implemented or adhered to. And as you, I think, have mentioned also, it's about the lack of accountability. With regard to Lancaster West in particular, very unfortunately, you are living under the legacy of decision-making and culture before and after the fire that definitely did not reflect any of the values that we now hear the council purport to subscribe to. You mentioned culture and engagement in relation to Lancaster West in particular, and as you know, I've been aware for several years of these ongoing issues and concerns, and while I'm absolutely looking at this in the very specific context to Lancaster West, I'm also aware
your remarks, please,
that,
Councillor
thank you.
Simmons.
I'm also aware that some of these issues are repeated across the ward, which points to systemic issues, which is why it's so important that you have come here to raise them, and I would just like to thank you very much for bringing them, and I hope to continue working with you and others to help get some improvement. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you very much, Mr. O'Connell. Ms. Camille Zabian, would you like to address the Chamber?
Good evening, councillors, and the CEO and legal department and all who are gathered here who perhaps find it difficult to really know and understand what's going on Lancaster West Estate. I am the advocate for Grenfell next of kin, that is the immediate families of 41 of the 72 people who died that you commemorate at every meeting. What is going on Lancaster Estate has not changed. I mean, as you said, Councillor Simmons, the word of culture change is constantly bandied about. But actually, what we have on the estate at the epicenter of this disaster, because the tower stood in the middle of the estate, is essentially repetition of the same culture and relationship between this council and its residents. Why do I say that? In the inquiry report phase 2, the chairman noted, it was a huge volume actually, about the relationship between the council, the officers, the TMO and the residents. The same pattern of behaviour is being repeated again today. There is more consultation, but it's all very, very controlled. And when people are speaking out and challenging what's happening, they are again being targeted either as difficult people, difficult voices, rebel residents. There is a real fear amongst residents to actually speak up. They feel that their tenancies might be targeted. There have been some incidents of certain people who have spoken up and challenged the way that the estate is being managed. And much like the TMO did, the W11 management on the estate is doing the same things again. People feel afraid to speak up. When they do, they become known as the problem, and then they are targeted. But is there really a problem, I think, is the thing that we should look at, and all the councillors here, not because it might not be your ward, but you are taxpayers. And the Grenfell tragedy has really, really been a massive gravy train. I've just left the meeting with the Metropolitan Police, £86.2 million. And they've now asked for another £100 million. £172 million public inquiry. This council is suing the other defendants for £360 million. So you have people who were killed, you have people who are their families, you have people who were displaced, and you have people who are still there, these residents. And why this council cannot give them any agency is just beyond me. The problem is that this estate refurbishment, which was promised back in 2017, has cost over £100 million already and is now asking the government for another £96 million. And the goalposts keep shifting because a few months ago they said they were £85 million short. Now they're saying they're £96 million short and they're asking for that money. Nothing would please the residents more than having these works done efficiently and so they can get on with their lives. But there is no scrutiny of the management decisions that are being made, how it's being managed, and how it's being delivered. And that's the problem. And you need to have neutral mediation because the council was left in charge of the disaster. There was no separation between the council, that's the main defendant in this tragedy, and the victims. And because that decision wasn't made, which was a political decision, because it would have looked awfully bad if Theresa May had asked for commissioners to come in to oversee North Kensington in the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea, you essentially victimize the victims more. You yourselves should do the honourable thing and ask for, if you don't want to call in commissioners because it looks bad, bring in some proper grown-up management, neutral mediators that's acceptable to both parties, and mediate the problems that are on the estate. The walkways absolutely should have the right of their own agency and their own representation because Lancaster West is a huge estate and they are adding more and more buildings to it. They are now adding other buildings on the outer parts of the estate to be part of the Lancaster West estate. And what it's doing is it's making people very fearful that this is actually preparing...
Ms. Avian, so we've reached 5 minutes. Please, could you sum up? Thank you very much.
That this is actually preparing the ground for some terrible Armageddon where you would only have to go and get sign-off from a couple of people to be able to do anything you want to that large estate. Don't go down this road. Do the honourable thing, bring in mediation and allow people to have agency. They live there.
Thank you very much. Councillor McVeigh, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Kimia. Thank you for coming to speak and for representing the residents you represent. So thank you for that. You again, like David, covered many different issues. I was prepared to answer on culture change, which again, I'm stating that the council has changed and the culture has changed within the council. But what I want to answer, I actually want to answer your specific point. So you mentioned scrutiny and you mentioned mediation and you mentioned agency in particular. So in regards to the scrutiny, particularly regarding the works on the estate, so we have a very regular Lancaster West refurbishment board programme, which Mushtaq is nodding to, where the RA, which are the voted-in residents' representations on the board. Sammy, they're voted in. And I chair that, and all 3 ward councillors are invited. And we also, in terms of your point about independent overview, we also have representations from the government there. So we have it from MHCLG there. And they're all invited to scrutinise the papers. They're all invited to scrutinise any of the discussions made throughout the programme, not just at the meeting, but throughout the year. So your point about scrutiny is, it is covered. People might not agree with what's happening, but it is being scrutinised independently. And regards mediation, Kimia, regarding mediation, it's really sad when individuals don't get on. And I completely understand. I know exactly what is being said here, and I have been very much part of it, trying to kind of... And I have a huge amount of time for both sides. And I think right now, though, as a council, we are working really well with the RA. And we have offered they're democratically elected, and we have offered independent mediation to the 2 different parties that are not getting on the estate. And unfortunately, that has been turned down. We have offered it, Kimia, I'm very happy to go through that again. And we have offered it to the RA and to the individuals. So it is a complicated matter. And again, very happy, Kimmy, to sit down with you outside this meeting. So we're not... I feel that I can't talk about individual circumstances in a public meeting.
Okay, thank you.
So I think I have
Councillor
answered about
McVeigh.
the scrutiny and I've answered about that we have doing independent mediation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Respect, Councillor, I don't feel you have answered the question at all.
Excuse me, sorry. Councillor Simmons, would you like to speak?
Thank you very much. And thank you, Kimia, for your questions. I would like to thank your group for their kindness and compassion in expressing concern for the residents of Lancaster West and seeking assurances on how the Council's programme of culture change is and will be implemented in relation to the estate and its residents. On the subject of progress and monitoring, an update on the Council's progress was presented to the Overview and Scrutiny Committee in May. Parallel to that, I believe it was shared with bereaved survivors and local residents. Another update is due in November. Section 9 of the report in May set out details of the ongoing communication, engagement, monitoring and scrutiny of the implementation programme. And this includes updates to bereaved survivors and local residents, the online action tracker, which I was looking at only last night, a planned public meeting to review progress and discuss further areas of focus, which I am very much looking forward to, and hopefully that you can bring up some of these issues there as well. As to your question about discord and harmony, I am currently very deeply concerned about the role of the Council and the possibility that its actions in some areas are fuelling and facilitating discord in relation to Lancaster West. and undermining the good efforts of other officers to bring harmony. I have recently raised grave concerns about this with Maxine. Whether it's a competence issue or a relic of this council culture's of fireless excesses, I do intend to get to the bottom of it, and at any rate, the residents, I'm sure, will all agree, deserve far better. Without prejudging the matter, I merely observe that it benefits those perpetrators who might wish to delay justice, to see discord on the estate rather than harmony. And with this in mind, I expect full support and cooperation from Maxine in taking the necessary steps to resolve this matter. It is my firm belief that the Council will be unable to deliver meaningful cultural change until it's able and willing to accept
you could conclude
what
now,
needs
please,
to change. And I believe at the leadership level, this is still a long way off. I would like to say more, but I will leave it there. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Sir, you make one point very briefly. Very, very briefly. Thank you. And if you would like to ask a question at the next meeting, you'd be very welcome to do so. Yeah, thank you. Ms. Evian, thank you very much. Mr. Patrick Summers, would you like to address the Council?
Thank you, and thank you for taking the time to let me come along and ask a question. I'm Patrick Summers, as has been said. I've lived in the borough for about 23 years now, just off Portobello Road, and I represent about 25 other residents who live in Portobello Road or near me. Putting this into context, because I realise there are people joining online, we on Portobello Road have been concerned for many, many years now about potential hostile vehicle attacks against pedestrians, against the vast number of visitors who visit the market in Portobello Road. And the market has grown dramatically since I've been there, which is great. It's a vibrant market and it's just a good buzz and so on. So my question relates to the recent measures that were put in without any consultation of the residents under an anti-terror order. It was deliberately done using that order to avoid having to consult with the residents and anyone else. And what I want to stress, as I've just said, is we absolutely support and we want anti-terror measures to be put in. But what was done to us effectively traps us in our homes for up to 7 days a week, for 6 hours a day, between 10 and 4 o'clock. So I've been trying to get to the bottom of this for some time now, since this was all dropped on us in May and June this year. And the residents were forced, for I'm afraid, the same reason that previous speakers have been talking about, which is absolute lack of communication and engagement by the council on what they are proposing to do. So the good thing about this is I've got to know a bunch of people I really like and have got to like, and some of them in the audience here tonight. But the bad thing is absolutely the same theme as what we've been hearing. So I submitted a question. I'm going to read it because I think it'll help other people that might be listening, and I just wanted to put it into context so that you know what I'm talking about. And by the way, I did live through 7/7, as most of us did here in London, and I lived through the 2017 hostile vehicle attacks on London Bridge. I saw them happen from my office on London Bridge. So I'm deeply concerned about this type of methodology. So since November 2021, there have been various measures that have restricted access on Portobello Road. There was an exception made for residents, and that's fine, and we've lived with that for the last 4 years. During this same period and prior to it, there have been numerous hostile vehicle attacks worldwide, including in the UK and London. So RBKC has had ample time to engage properly with directly affected residents to design a balanced, effective anti-terror scheme allowing safe resident access while protecting pedestrians. So my question here is, why did RBKC wait until June 2025 to impose the daily 6-hour access restrictions without prior consultations and without any exemptions at first? I know some have been introduced subsequently. And they could have engaged with us. There's plenty of us who know about these things who can help, and we would help design these measures. And we would have worked with any experts. We weren't even told about the experts, and we're not allowed to see the experts' reports. And what I want to know is who within RBKC was responsible during this entire period that I've talked about for monitoring these risks and initiating a structured, evidence-based process to design something that would work effectively and not trap people in their homes. Why was it not done sooner? You've had so much time. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Thalasitas, would you like to respond?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you for coming, and I realise that the temporary hostile vehicle mitigation scheme on Portobello has presented problems for some people in the area. I think in terms of why we've done it in June 2025, the reason something temporary was put in place at pace this year was because we received updated counter-terror advice that asked us to introduce something as soon as possible. They recommended that we use an anti-terror traffic order, which is what we've done, and the nature of that prohibits kind of full consultation. Obviously, the council has a statutory obligation to put public safety first. We've done what we've done in relation to that counter-terror advice. The scheme is led, and the threat, well, or rather, the highways monitoring is done by the highways team. So it's the highways department that does the kind of monitoring that you've talked about. The interim scheme that we have at the moment did follow some consultation and engagement last year as part of the Strengthening Portobello project, which did talk about the potential use of safety barriers on the street. We did try to listen to and incorporate resident feedback in terms of how that looks and how it works. We haven't neglected that work, and officers have been working very hard to put together something that could work more permanently. So in the next couple of weeks, I expect us to start consulting on the first phase of what would be a more permanent solution. This would be in terms of the look and feel of the street, with the kind of operational side of things to come before implementation. So there will be an opportunity for us to do some more work with you to see how it can work in a way that manages the risk, which we do need to do, but also mitigates some of the harm to your enjoyment of your home and the area that you've chosen to live. I recognise there's been disruption, and there are lots of complexities to this in terms of emergency vehicle access, blue badge access.
Could you conclude, please?
I think all I would say to conclude is that we're committed to consulting fully on this permanent scheme over the next few weeks and over the next few years in terms of the different phases, and we'll need to balance our counter-terrorism obligations with the harm that it is doing to residential amenity.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. Can we let Councillor Bakhtia speak, and then if you want to give just a very, very quick summary at the end, I will let you. Councillor Bakhtia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Patrick. This is a very good question. We have had this public speaking since after Grenfell, and this is one of the good things, outcomes of this disaster. And ever since, in every public speaking, we have had complaints from our residents about engagement, public participation, and consultation, every time, directly or indirectly. This is not us, not me. These are residents telling us this. That means whatever we do in this council is not working. We are not engaging with them properly. I had, Councillor Benton and I had the team's meeting after this, after they implemented the temporary measures at Portobello. And I did ask specifically one question. Was there an imminent danger? If there was, so we don't oppose, we support the actions. And the answer was no. So if there is no imminent danger, we should include people. We should ask people, those who are affected. As you all know, public participation and consultation is the cornerstone in democracy in practice. This is the only way citizens stay engaged with their representative throughout until the next election. We have suffered a lot in this council, and it is in the favor of the Conservative Council to engage better. There are better ways. We have suggested. I personally mentioned public consultation many times in this chamber, but it seems we are not trying to approach it properly and to have a different approach and think outside the box. I think even if you have the measures to take decisions, I would still consult with people if there is no imminent danger. This will improve the engagement with our residents, and you will still have whatever you wanted to do. Thank you for coming, Patrick.
Ms. Summers, if you have a very brief comment, I'll allow that. Yeah.
Thank you. Just very briefly, and thank you for your kind comments. So what I said is we support anti-terror measures. We want them. I will correct you. You did not consult on the exact measures that were put in at all. You didn't consult us on the type of measures, which look awful, by the way. And you didn't talk to us about being restricted in our homes in the way that you've done it. What I heard was the reason you've done something after all these years is as a knee-jerk reaction to what the Met Police, who've got a really hard job to do, quite rightly asked, what are you doing about hostile vehicle measures on Portobello Road? They absolutely quite rightly asked about it.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Summers. And thank you for coming to speak. Mr. James Ortiz, would you like to address the Council?
My name is James Ortiz, and I reside in Earls Court, where crime and antisocial behaviour are on the rise and blighting the lives of residents who feel unsafe in their community. Every resident in Earls Court has a story about how crime and ASB has affected them personally. According to readily available police data, crime in Earls Court is now at its highest level in 3 years and has continued to rise in recent months. Earls Court lost its police station, and now we will lose our 24/7 counter at Kensington Police Station. However, the Council is not powerless. Other councils in London have already funded local community police hubs, providing a visible police presence and helping to tackle crime. Will the Council commit to funding community police hubs in Earls Court?
Thank you. Councillor Addenbrooke, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Mr. Ortiz, for your question. We fully recognise the concerns of Earls Court residents regarding crime and antisocial behaviour, and we understand the impact this has on individuals and the community. So whilst the police hold the primary responsibility for tackling crime, the Council is working closely with them to support prevention and enforcement. This includes the introduction of a Public Space Protection Order, PSPO, which some of us refer to it as, in April 2024. Earls Court remains a priority for the Council. Our approach is driven by police data, local intelligence, and the reports we receive from residents and councillors. We hold weekly multi-agency problem-solving meetings involving the police and council teams to coordinate action on the most urgent issues. In addition, monthly strategic meetings with senior officers, including the Head of Community Safety and Superintendent Renandon, allow us to escalate concerns and agree longer-term solutions. Measures include deploying dedicated street enforcement officers in Earls Court and joint operations with the police and the community safety team. Over the past 3 months, 5 properties linked to serious ASB have been shut down or had tenants moved, and further cases are being actively pursued. We are also working with the police and housing providers to carry out enhanced checks on new tenants for properties with a history of ASB. So since July 2025, 549 fixed penalty notices have been issued for PSPO breaches, and September 2025 had the lowest recorded number of crimes, which indicates the recent partnership activity is having a positive impact. We do recognise, however, that enforcement alone is not enough, and we continue to work with the police to develop longer-term and innovative responses. On the question of local policing hubs,
could you please summarise, Councillor Addenbrooke?
This council faces significant financial pressures. Under the Labour government's proposed fairer funding formula, we will lose up to 40% of our controllable budget. This means difficult decisions lie ahead, and our priority must be to protect essential services and support our most vulnerable residents. We are holding a Council Comes to You event in Earls Court in November. It'd be great if you could come along, and I'll send you the details after.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Wade, would you like to speak?
Thank you, James, for coming tonight and to raise this important question. Liberal Democrats welcome the development of local police hubs to combat the loss of our front counters at Earls Court Police Station and also at Royalty Studios. The police state that they're under-resourced, and the importance of retaining contact with their communities is now even more important. We feel that resident-facing police hubs using public spaces could be created in such locations as Tesco's or Sainsbury's or other public spaces, including, we think developers should include hubs in their plans as part of their social infrastructure strategy as mandatory, and the use of council offices and libraries could be explored. This is particularly important to explore all options as we wait for the outcome of the Met's estate strategy to be announced in a few weeks' time, and what the future actually holds for the Kensington Police Station. Councillor Addenbrooke referred to the SET team, which seemed to be going for the low-hanging fruit and the people who actually can afford to pay the fines, rather than the people in our doorsteps and in our doorways. What is essential is the police increase their contact and knowledge of their communities, as the Met Engage is a tool designed to inform rather than for reporting, and does not have a response mechanism. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Mr. Ortiz, and thank you to all our speakers who came to the Chamber today. We now move on to item 6. Do members have any petitions to present? I have been given notice of 2. Can I remind you both, please just read the prayer of the petition and nothing else, especially as we're quite behind now on time. So I have Councillor Jeddett. Would you like to read the prayer? No. Councillor Rossi, would you like to read a prayer?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a petition to take enforcement action for derelict property on 144 Ifield Road, SW10. We call upon the Council to update and enforce the Section 215 notice served in 2016 and successful court conviction in 2017, taken with powers under the Town and Country Planning Act 1990. The notice was backed by enforcement letters from the senior legal officer and council officers. They have made frequent subsequent inspections and in June 2024 confirmed continuing knotweed infestation to a height of over 12 feet. The officer presenting court evidence said unless all the notice works were completed, it could be subject to a further prosecution in 2018. The property has deteriorated hugely since. Decomposing remains of the last basement tenant were removed 15 years ago. Foxes and rats now breed there. Vegetation is growing through the broken rear windows upstairs. Leaking water from a mains feed has been pouring constantly for 2 years. This is not a simple dispute between immediate neighbours, but a blight on the whole street, affecting the amenity value both for residents and passers-by. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rossi. We now proceed to item 7. I believe the whips have a proposal under Standing Order 42. Is that correct?
Mr Mayor, under Standing Order 42, I wish to move that Standing Order 30 be suspended this evening to allow Councillor Campbell and Councillor Ali up to 7 minutes each for their speeches.
Is that seconded? Yeah. Is that agreed? Very good. I now invite the Leader of the Council to address the meeting for up to 7 minutes.
Mr Mayor, thank you. As you may be aware, we are at the start of what promises to be one of the most challenging set of budget cycles our council has ever faced. So it's important that we're clear about the issues and upfront with the public. And tonight I want to outline what's happening, why it's happening, why it matters, and how each of us can play a part in shaping the outcome. And I want to begin by being crystal clear about the challenge that local authorities are facing, thanks to this Labour government. In recent weeks, I've been out in the community, out in London, out across the UK, warning that the government's so-called fairer funding reforms risk being anything but fair for this city, this borough, the people that live and work here. Across London, we are facing government cuts of £700 million. In this borough, 83 million over 3 years. And we have been given zero time to plan. The national budget is later than ever, and the local government financial settlement is expected just a few days before the 25th of December. What a happy Christmas this is going to be. Mr Mayor, it's fair to say that inner London boroughs like ours are being completely fleeced under these new Labour government proposals, stripping away money from places and communities here in the capital with the sole intention of trying to claim a few seats in the north. But we are arguing our case, and we know that the government is listening. Mr Mayor, there are 3 key issues at stake. 1, the new fairer funding formula fails to properly factor in housing costs and the unique burdens faced by urban areas, such as very high rents, homelessness, temporary accommodation, extra cost of service delivery in dense, high-cost areas. For example, we spend about 18% of our budget on homelessness, yet the proposed model allocates only 1.4%. 2, the proposed transition period is far too short. Councils like ours simply cannot absorb huge reductions in just a few years without damaging services. We need a 10-year transition rather than a 3-year one, at least. Number 3, the new model is based on assumptions like high notional council tax bans that underplay the real situation. In short, this reform, which aims for funding to follow need, is flawed. But, Mr Mayor, what does this mean for our council and for our communities? The figures show that we are now facing some really tough choices. The projected gap between our income and the cost of services is increasing year on year, with inflation, pay pressures, higher demand for adult social care, children's services, homelessness support, special educational needs. I could go on. All costs are rising. Meanwhile, any extra funding from central government is uncertain, and now the fairer funding review threatens to shift money away from us, away from some of the most deprived areas in the UK, away from Londoners who well might need it the most. And Mr Mayor, we are often labelled as the richest borough, but having wealthy residents living within our borders does not make us a rich council. The fact is, we are now faced with charging young families and working people more money over here just to help fill an ever-deepening hole over there in Whitehall. This Labour government only knows tax and spend. Tax more, spend more, And growth? I mean, don't make me laugh. There is no plan, no way out, just tax, 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 and hit councils harder and harder and harder. And I'm afraid the message is stark tonight because the situation demands it. But I want people to be assured that we will do what we can to protect the things people love most about this borough, about the services we provide, and about the communities they live in. Mr. Mayor, we will be entering a budget consultation in early November with the knowledge we cannot sustain business as usual. Councillors and residents need to understand the choices are difficult, and unless the government changes course, they are unavoidable. Fairer funding means we have less money and we will have to do less. As ever, we will be careful with taxpayers' money, as our services remain some of the best in London because they are already value for money. We are forced to look deeper. We may be required to reduce or reshape services, fewer buildings, fewer hours, more shared services. Against all our principles, we may be forced to consider raising local taxes. But my message to government on behalf of London has been this. These aren't abstract financial figures. For many councils right across London, they could mean lost social workers, reduced services for young people, fewer options for the homeless. That isn't good enough for London, and it isn't good enough for us. So I take this opportunity to speak to residents tonight. Help us make the case. Join our campaign to correct fairer funding. Local authorities must have a funding settlement that reflects real pressures, local need, housing costs, demographic changes. We need a strong, unified voice to hold central government to account. The more we engage, the stronger our case. Engage in our budget consultation. Early November marks the start of that process. Your views matter more than ever. Work together, whether you're a councillor, officer, resident, volunteer or business, and prepare for change. Mr. Mayor, it's tempting to see only the downside, but by being honest early, by planning well and by engaging our community and our staff, I hope we can shape the outcome rather than being shaped by it. Mr. Mayor, this is not a routine budget cycle. The stakes are high, but we can protect what matters most. Speak up against this so-called fair funding. Write to your MPs, write to the government, and we will face the challenge together. Thank you.
Well I now invite Councillor Ali to respond for up to 7 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hope you and fellow councillors and our council staff had a restful summer. But let me tell you what really our residents are telling us. Unfortunately, many of our residents, especially the leaseholders and the council tenants, were not so fortunate to have a pleasant summer due to some housing issues. My colleagues in opposition and I have repeatedly urged the council leadership to listen and change, to deliver services fit for the 21st century, but the Conservative leadership continues to ignore our residents, and we must hold them accountable because we speak on behalf of our residents and through all our residents, not just one part of our borough. Mr. Mayor, I have organized several meetings in the past for leaseholders who raised concerns about failed major works program in 2017. Then the lead member for housing, Councillor Kim Telly-Smith, and several officers who were present to discuss about the disrepairs as well as overcharging for our residents. At one meeting, the residents were assured that they will not be pursued for payments until review has taken place. Delgado residents who were later told that a thorough review will be carried out and the leaseholders concerned will be given a fresh look. That has never happened. 2 years on, Mr. Mayor, and 1 year after the direct talks with the council leadership, nothing has been done, which is continued measured for our council leadership and not listening to our residents. One resident who contacted me, and who actually contacted the leadership as well, said, and I quote, "I am ill. I have a long-time debilitating illness which is exacerbated by stress. I am wearing a heart monitoring at this very moment. So just stop sending harassment and just look at the, just stop by this harassment and look into the truth of this situation," specifically referring to the asking thousands of pounds, at one case over £4,000 for residents to pay. Residents simply are asking for this council to stop sending threatening demands for payments for major failed work, Mr. Mayor. To solve this, I would like to invite the council, the lead member for housing, Councillor Soph McVeigh, to meet with Delgado residents, leaseholders and others in similar situation, and I'm very happy to participate and in fact facilitate for this meeting for our residents who are indeed in a similar situation. Mr. Mayor, the social housing regulator's judgment this summer referred to serious failings and safety and the quality of RBKC homes. C3 is not just a number, it represents a systematic failure of this council's leadership and a failure under the Conservative administration. Only 40% of our individual properties have been surveyed, Mr. Mayor, and that for the last 5 years, and the failings impact in areas including repairs, dump, mold, tenants, as well as the community support, including procurement, contract management, as well as antisocial behavior, lift policies, estate improvement, and to some extent, a growing fear of reprisals among residents. Mr. Mayor, 8 years on of Grenfell, this council, this is unacceptable for our residents in this borough to live under a situation in where they are living in non-decent homes. This council must take and remember, always remember, never forget the tragedy of a national tragedy of Grenfell. The regulator's finding, Mr. Mayor, and the failings show that this is unacceptable. We, as a Labour group and other opposition members, continue to believe that safe, secure and dignified housing is not just a privilege. It's not a privilege, it's actually a right for each and every member of our community. This council must now move from words and into action, and to make sure to do that, ending systematic negligence for tenants and leaseholders, confronting the toxic culture exposed by Grenfell inquiry, as well as working collaboratively and proactively with the regulator to meet and actually exceed the decent homes standard. Mr. Mayor, the Conservative leadership continues to call themselves that we're doing the right thing, but they actually do the opposite. And let's just say they claim they're good with money, but look at the history of them. They have seen a huge waste, major works program, and as well as incompetent and incomplete refurbishment costing tens of millions of pounds, but to some extent asking the government to nearly £100 million to be given so that they can deal with the failure of their works. And this council has originally budgeted for a project, for example, to give you an example, another example, £1 million for a project, and that £1 million now is just being forecast for £10 million. How can they claim they're good also with the environment? They said we are very good with the environment by pledging to electrifying bin lorries, but then again they're purchasing diesel vehicles. How can you just say one thing and do another? How can our residents in RBKC can actually take what they say for granted? They consistently fail to follow through. The truth is they have not changed and they never will. And for that matter, Mr. Mayor, the only way that can be done is our residents to have the chance and the power on May 2026 to change them for good. And that will be something we're looking forward to. Finally, Mr. Mayor, on a more positive news, I understand the leader of the council has mentioned about the funding and the issues we're going through, but this Labour government under Sir Keir Starmer, and this we have rightly elected a government that actually listens and gives back. And we know the winter issue that has been happening. The winter is coming up. This council has let many of our residents, especially the roughest sleepers, they have not contributed and supported. So this government is listening and also giving back and putting the money where the money is. And I remember the lead member for finance, Councillor Jim Kamali, has actually could not wait for me to inform you about that. We have almost £250 million. That's over £248,000 the government to give us to deal with the roughest sleepers as well as homelessness in this winter to support our community. And the council councillor could he actually commented on my Twitter account so that he could just make sure that he's quite happy about it. I don't know what he feels about it, but I'm really pleased that he understands this government is giving the support to this council, which actually mismanaged the funding, but it's still the government is giving. I don't know what other government can actually give in that one. But to be fair, Mr. Mayor, the fairer funding is an issue that we all face. It's an issue that we make sure that we work with the leader of the council, and an issue that our local MPs, Joe Powell, as well as Joe Powell for Kensington Bayswater and Ben Coleman for Chelsea and Fulham, to work with us to make sure that we give the government the message and this council gets the support they need. But we cannot get the support we need if we keep wasting that kind of money. And I'm sure the lead member for financing will listen and will spend the money in the right way at this time when the government provides. Many thanks, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. We now proceed to item 8. In accordance with the standing orders, I rule that the order of business shall be to take the urgent item first and then the rest of the agenda as published. So for that urgent item, following the Chief Executive's announcement, it's an urgent item set out in your supplementary papers. Councillor Addenbrooke, I believe you will move.
Mr. Mayor, I move under SO 20.02 that standing orders be suspended to enable the Council to debate as a matter of urgency the subject matter of the statement.
And is there a seconder?
I second the proposal, Mr. Mayor.
Can I see all in favour? All against? Any abstentions? There's one abstention. So 2 abstentions. Okay. Well, that's passed. Councillor Addenbrooke, would you like to speak for up to 5 minutes?
I think, Mr. Mayor, the report is very clear and nobody wants to hear me speak for another 5 minutes. Thank you.
Very good. Well, we always love hearing you speak, but given time is of the essence, that's very kind. Councillor Dent-Coad, would you like to speak?
Mr. Mayor, I'm also going to spare you this one time, and I go along with Councillor Addenbrooke this one time. Thank you.
Similarly, very kind of you, Councillor Dent-Coad. Would any other members like to speak? Yes, Councillor Lowry.
Very briefly to note that Councillor Benton will remain on the planning committee, the next meeting of which is on the 11th of November. And I wanted to point out that in relation to this meeting, many residents' association leads still have not got a response from the council about the coercion by consultants to get their signature regarding the Kensal Canal Side development, including Samir Badani, the chair of the Bramley House Association, who chased again yesterday. This is again another example of the council failing to respond to its residents and consider adequate consultation.
Is this relevant to the current item? I think let's... Well, you've had your say, so I think let's move on. Councillor Addenbrooke, would you like to sum up, or should we move?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. So, can I see all those in favour of the recommendations, please? Thank you. Or any against the recommendations? Any abstentions to the recommendations? No. Okay. In which case, the recommendations on the ratios and representation are approved. The recommendation to waive proportionality on planning committee is also approved. Yeah, so all 3 of those recommendations are approved. We now move to item 9. There are 3 reports from the leadership team. The first is to approve the medium-term financial strategy, 2026-27 to 2029-30. The second is to note the annual Treasury outturn report, 2024-25. And the third is to note the key decisions taken under urgency procedures. I now invite Councillor Campbell to propose the report's reception and Councillor Taylor-Smith to second.
I'd like to propose, Mr. Mayor.
I'd like to second, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Campbell, would you like to speak?
No, thank you.
Does any other member wish to speak? No, in which case, does the Council agree to approve the medium-term financial strategy, 2026-27 to 29-30, and to note both the annual Treasury outturn report 2024-25 and the key decisions taken under urgency procedures? That is approved and noted. Item 10. There is a report from the Audit and Transparency Committee on the Local Code of Corporate Governance. This report asks the Council to agree to the Committee's recommendation to adopt the updated Local Code of Corporate Governance and agree that it forms part of the Council's constitution. Would Councillor Hargreaves formally propose the report's reception, and Councillor Yankson please second?
I propose, Mr. Mayor. I'd be happy to second, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Hargreaves, would you like to speak?
Mr. Mayor, just very briefly indeed, because I realise time is of issue, but this amended Local Code of Corporate Governance seeks to outline in its report both policies and procedures and the way in which the code is incorporated into the everyday workings of this Council. And at its meeting on the 21st of July, the Audit and Transparency Committee considered the report, and they requested several amendments to be made to it, which have been built into the report and the code that you've got in front of you tonight. So this updated code, which is crucial, at the heart of any well-run organisation is sound governance. Sound governance depends on codes like this, not only being in place, but also being implemented. And this updated local code reflects the outcome of the review of governance by the Monitoring Officer and Chief Solicitor and the Director of Audit, Fraud, Risk and Insurance, based on guidance published by the Chartered Institutes of Public Finance and Accountancy and SOLOS. So this isn't just our own report, we're not just marking our own homework, but this is actually putting us in line with national guidelines against, that set these reports. So these amendments that the committee proposed have been incorporated in the addendum to the Delivering Good Governance Framework, which was published in May 2025. So members will note, very briefly, members will note that the code takes into account the commitments made by the Council in response to the Grenfell Inquiry report. And the updated version also incorporates the 12 principles of good governance proposed by the Centre for Public Scrutiny in their report, Change at the Council, and was previously adopted by the Council some time ago. So at the start of my comments, I said that good governance lies at the heart of well-run and successful organisations. And I hope members will agree that this Council lays the foundation, and this code of conduct in front of us tonight lays the foundation for that, both in terms of policies and procedures. And we've heard tonight the importance of having those good governance policies and procedures, and how this code is incorporated in all aspects of the Council's life. A code of this nature has to be owned and lived by all of us. And I do urge all councillors tonight and all members of this council to read the code and reflect on how this impacts on their specific role within the council and their responsibility of councillors, whatever that may be. So, Mr. Mayor, in presenting this code tonight, I would like to thank Laverne Parker, the Chief Solicitor and Monitoring Officer, and David Hughes, Director of Audit, Risk and Fraud, for their hard work, and the staff in their team for their hard work in putting this together. And Mr. Mayor, I hope that all councillors will be able to approve the updated code and really bring it alive in all that they do as elected councillors and leaders within the borough. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Does any other member wish to speak on this matter? Councillor Simmons.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's very welcome that we have this report from the Audit and Transparency Committee. I think it's very welcome that we have another set of codes of conduct and corporate governance here. The Chair has mentioned that this isn't marking our own homework, but it does say on page 94 of our pack, 96, sorry, how was compliance with the code assessed? And it does say at 4.2, the annual review of governance has taken the form of a detailed self-assessment. Now, I call that marking your own homework. I think the main, most important point about this report is how are we going to ensure that this set of principles and code of governance is actually going to be adhered to and applied in practice so that residents feel it in their lives. We have seen today in the public speaking section how very much some of these principles actually are not being felt. We have seen about points about behaving with integrity, commitment to ethical values, respecting the rule of law, ensuring openness, engagement and consultation in particular, transparency. We haven't seen too much, I don't think, success from the residents' point of view on those points. So my concern is, how are we going to actually make sure that this is going to be embedded within the council, that there is going to be accountability, and that this new code is actually going to be adhered to, because otherwise it's just another set of points on a shelf, like the 12, the Nolan Principles, the 12 Principles of 12 Governance from Centre for Governance and Scrutiny, all the other commitments, the Charter for Public Participation, which is having to be reviewed because it hadn't been adhered to, everything, all the commitments we've seen since Grenfell, the Hillsborough Charter, all of it hasn't been applied. So I think there is a real question for the whole council here. How are we going to ensure that we actually do more than just talk the talk, but we need to walk the walk? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Does any other member wish to speak on this item? No, in which case, Councillor Hargreaves, would you like to sum up?
No, thank you.
No. Does the Council agree to the recommendation to adopt the updated local code of corporate governance and to agree that it forms part of the Council's constitution? The code is adopted. There's also a report from the Administration Committee. Excuse me. This report asks the Council to agree: 1. The introduction of an opening date for requests to raise local issues and questions to lead members. 2. That undebated motions should lapse at the end of the 4-year electoral cycle. 3. The constitutional amendments to contract regulations and functions delegated to officers to support delivery of the Council's Treasury management strategy. 4. To amend the municipal timetable. Would Councillor Taylor-Smith formally propose the report's reception, and Councillor Addenbrooke please second?
I'm pleased to propose, Mr. Mayor.
I wish to second, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Taylor-Smith, would you like to speak?
Mr. Mayor, you eloquently covered the paper, and in the interest of brevity, no, I don't wish to speak. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. I assume the same is true for you, Councillor Addenbrooke. Does any other member wish to speak on this? No, in which case I assume there's no need to sum up either. Does the Council agree to adopt the recommendations as stated in the report? The recommendations are adopted. Item 11, there are no reports from the Overview and Scrutiny and Select Committees. Item 12, we have notice of 5 questions to lead members. Would Councillor Jeddart please put her question to Councillor Campbell?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Will the leader of the council resign with her cabinet in the light of the housing team failing residents in all possible ways, from complete lack of adaptation, repairs carried out in a timely manner, accepting a new housing stock in a state of complete disrepair on completion, selling of housing stock bought with public money, lack of consultation regarding the Grenfell Tower future, lack of consultation when disposing of a public asset like council close. Additionally, a neglect of green spaces on council-run estates, lack of engagement with emails directed to the lead member for housing, lack of acting from the lead member for community and safety when city living local life was systematically blocked by Councillor Ali, the outstanding criminal charges for crimes against society, being uninterested in Ladbroke Grove tube station step-free
Point
access,
of order, Mr. Mayor.
appointing the chief executive unable to engage
Councillor
with the residents
Jeddart, we
facing
have a
criminal
point of order.
charges.
Sorry, one moment. Councillor Ali, what's your point of order?
28.01, what has Councillor Ali got to do with the leader, question to the leader of the council? I'm not the leader of the council, and the councillor should speak correctly when asking questions.
I think that's a reasonable point. Please address your question to Councillor Campbell as stated in the papers.
The leader of the council is managing the cabinet. The lead member for communities is under her management, if you like.
Yes, so the question
so
is to Councillor Campbell.
Will the cabinet,
Could
will
you
the leader
conclude your
resign?
question so Councillor Campbell can answer it, please?
So will the leader of the cabinet resign in the light of what I just said?
Okay. Councillor Campbell.
Thank you, Councillor Jeddah. I think the answer to your first question is no. I'm proud of our record here, and I fully intend to lead this council into the next year's election. And just for the record, we do have outstanding services in children's services and in adult services and on our streets. And housing will continue to aspire to the same standards as we have across the rest of the council. And I would just like to say that I feel that in Maxine we have the best chief executive in London, and she is pushing for that, for high standards across every single area of the council, every single day. Of course, more work needs to be done, but it's worth noting that we've invested over £700 million over the last 8 years since I became leader, and that's a sign of the priority we give to housing. Regarding your question about Grenfell Tower, the government retains the responsibility for that. The then Deputy Prime Minister, Angela Rayner, took the decision to bring down the tower with a carefully and sensitively. That's what they promised. And should you have any concerns about the process, I suggest you get in touch directly with the government. Finally, you've raised all sorts of additional points, but as Councillor Ali pointed out, that the questions for me really rather to other councillors, so I think I've answered most of the ones which were relevant. Thank you very much.
Councillor Jeddah, do you have a follow-up question?
Yes, I have a follow-up question. As the leader of the council and the Conservative Party member, would you agree that the Conservative Party brought this council into disrepute because under your management Grenfell took place, disaster which we watched and we are still traumatized, by your reckless cost-cutting, by your having a serious disregard for safety of others, and now the council, because of your management and mismanagement, faces the possible criminal charges, manslaughter by our police. The police investigated. So would you agree, you as a party, Conservative Party members, you might be charged as individuals by police because of Grenfell, because of your failure, because of sitting on a refurbishment board, because being responsible. It's very sad that one of the residents literally become quite agitated about asbestos being removed.
Jeddah, I'm going to let Councillor Campbell answer that now.
This is just more or less business as usual, and I would like to know if you feel and agree you as a party brought the council into disrepute.
Councillor Campbell, would you like to answer that supplementary question?
I don't think it was a question, Mr Mayor, and secondly, I wasn't in charge during Grenfell, and nor were most of the councillors here. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mackover, please put your question to Councillor Thalasitas.
Thank you. Does the lead member for planning have an update on the government's deeply undemocratic plan to remove the right of call-in from local councillors and other changes in relation to planning committees?
Thank you, Councillor Mackover. It's a really good question, and the truth is I don't have an update because as far as we know, Labour still plan to take away the rights of call-in from councillors and to stop residents from having their say on major applications. So this is a real problem for our communities. We know that our residents know their areas best. We work closely with residents wherever possible on planning. It's one of the key things that people come to us to talk about. And the party over there wants to take away the right of residents to comment on planning applications and the right of councillors in this chamber to bring things to committee. It's something they should be ashamed of. Yeah. And I very much hope that residents will vote against that next year.
Mr Mayor,
Councillor, do you have a point of order?
Yes. Under Standing Order 29, would Councillor Thalasitas allow an intervention on what you've just said, particularly with regards to planning matters in Kensal Canal side, you allowing the coercion of residents
I would not like to
be
Standing Order
as
29.
public comments?
Standing Order 29 is around an intervention during the speech. So I think he's concluded his speech. Is that correct? Councillor Thelicitas. So, Councillor Mackover, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for your response. Last night, the Planning Committee met to decide on a 24-hour casino application. Would the lead member join me in thanking the 250 residents of Earl's Court who wrote in and attended in person last night in this chamber where the application was refused? How would he advise all of our residents who want to continue to participate at planning committees and whose rights are at risk?
Thank you again, Councillor Mackover. I certainly join you in thanking residents in Earl's Court for standing up to this application. I think people who want to retain the right to comment on planning applications and for councillors to have the right of call-in can do a couple of things. They can write to the government and make that case and respond, although the consultation is closed. And the other thing they can do is vote Conservative on the 7th of May, because this is the only party in this chamber that will defend that right and will allow residents to continue opposing planning applications that don't work.
I rise under Standing Order 29 to ask for an intervention.
Okay. Councillor, have you concluded? Okay.
Well,
I mean, under Standing Order 29, he can also turn down the option for an intervention, but he's concluded. So I think we move to the next question. Councillor Gardner, would you like to put your question to Councillor Addenbrooke?
Thank you. Having kept Notting Hill Police Station in my ward closed since 2017, the Met, under the Mayor of London's leadership, has announced it will close all the front counters in this borough, following the announcement that the 24/7 counter at Kensington Police Station and the front counter at Royalty Studios in North Kensington are to close completely. Does the lead member for community safety agree that closing police stations is rapidly becoming the calling card of Mayor Khan, despite his manifesto pledge that every borough would have a front counter open 24/7? Does the lead member share the concern of 3,000 residents who signed a local petition opposing the closures, and will she commit, alongside the leader, to making the case for police stations to stay open to the public? Thank you.
Councillor Gardner, thank you for raising this tonight. We are obviously incredibly disappointed by this decision and are in daily contact with the police on this, but it's all about broken promises. Following the Grenfell tragedy, the Met committed to the provision of a front counter at Royalty Studios. They have now broken this promise without any consultation with Grenfell United or other groups or the Grenfell affected community. No notice has been taken of the petition which over 3,000 of our residents signed opposing the closure. And following the recent borough-wide survey, we know that crime came out as one of our residents' biggest concerns. So having somewhere accessible in the borough is really important. Going to Charing Cross is simply not an option for many, particularly following the recent Panorama programme. And as you mentioned, another broken promise. Sadiq Khan promised that every borough would have a 24/7 counter. A broken promise. So the leader, chief executive and I are committed to making the case for this to be reviewed and for the Met to keep open the front desk at Kensington Police Station and Royalty Studios. The fact that we will be the only London borough without one is totally unacceptable. When you look at other global cities, such as Paris, who has one counter for every 102,000 people, and New York, who has one counter for every 107,000 people, the decision to close all but 2 of the 24/7 counters in London just doesn't make sense.
May I rise under Standing Order 29 to ask the member if I may make an intervention?
Councillor, would you like to give way under Standing Order 29?
Sorry, what have I said that's wrong?
Colleagues, one moment. Under Standing Order 29, you have the discretion to give way to an intervention if you would like to do so. No.
Sorry, I've got one more sentence. Front counters not only provide a valuable place for residents to speak to the police, but also for tourists who are often impacted by crime. So this is definitely top of our agenda.
Hypocrisy. Rank hypocrisy.
Councillor Gardiner, do you have a follow-up question?
Given the length of my first question, I'll merely say please keep us updated.
Councillor Hargreaves, would you like to put your question to Councillor Kamali?
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor, and we've already touched on this subject tonight, and in the Leader's very succinct and very practical contribution to this in her speech, she's raised the alarm bells in my mind even further. So the question I've got down here, I think, is even more relevant for the lead member for Finance. Does the lead member for Finance agree that it would be disgraceful for the government to withdraw £83 million, roughly 40% of the council's control of budget, in the next 3 years? Thank you.
Thank you. The leader's already summed up exactly the impact that this would have. Of course, it's absolutely disgraceful. Colleagues might be curious as to why the leader of what's left of the Labour group was so keen to talk about Twitter. The Labour Party have made a very generous contribution. The contribution was...
One moment, Councillor, sorry. Do you have a point of order?
Standing Order 2802. I wish to give some explanation of some conduct or speech that I fear may have
Sorry, one moment.
It's a breach of 25.02. 2502.
So this is a point of personal explanation. What is the point of personal explanation you'd like to give?
A councillor shall not indulge in tedious repetition, irrelevance, or unbecoming language, nor shall they impute motives or make reflections of a personal...
Sorry, Councillor, that's not a point.
So we do have tedious repetition.
It's not a point of personal explanation.
It is tedious repetition, Mr Mayor.
That's besides the point. It's not a point of personal explanation.
I guess they're in denial still.
Councillor Kamali.
I fear the only repetitions from the other side of the room. Anyway, the leader of what's left of the Labour Party took a moment from playing musical chairs and musical wards to reach out on Twitter to tell us about a huge contribution from this Labour government as to how they'll help plug our hole, having ripped £83 million out of it. That contribution, Mr Mayor, was £250,000. The equivalent to 0.3% of the amount of money that they're taking away from our residents, from their residents, and even from the Independent Group's residents, the Lib Dem Party's residents, the Green Party's residents, everybody's residents. 0.3%. That is what the leader of the Labour Group believes is enough to make up for the 84 million that the Labour Party are taking out from our residents. It's absolutely shameful and absolutely disgraceful.
Councillor Hargreaves, do you have
Mr Mayor, I do have a follow-up question. I'm very sorry that the Labour Party opposite regard this issue as a tedious issue. I regard it, and I'm sure our residents regard it, as anything but tedious. This is going to involve a huge programme of austerity for not just this borough, but for boroughs across London. Austerity that we've never seen the likes of before. No, we haven't. You obviously don't read the question. You don't read your facts. This size of cut is going to be bigger than we've ever known before. So the level of austerity, and you can play around with words, but in my mind, a rose by any other name is still a rose. So we're going to get a major programme of austerity, which is going to cripple this council's budget. So I would like the lead member in my supplementary question to talk about...
Colleagues,
we have just approved a code of conduct that asks for respect to members when they're speaking. I would expect you as a member of that committee, Councillor Hargreaves, to stick to that. So I would like to ask a supplementary question of what support is the lead member and the leader getting in this issue from our two Labour MPs and from the leader of the Labour group opposite. Thank you.
Councillor Kamali.
Mr Mayor, this is clearly a very emotional issue for us all. We're all here to represent our residents. And having this much money cut from our budget means we're going to have to work that much harder to be able to provide the services that the leaders already set out outstanding nearly across the board for this council. Unfortunately, apart from a post on Twitter, I've not had any conversation from discussion with the leader of the Labour group here. I suspect the leader of the council has been in discussion with the MPs, but I've not seen anything publicly from them condemning this behaviour from the Labour government. Made even more ironic, given the MP for Camden is the current Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, and they're equally facing a significant budget cut over the next 3 years. It's really quite disappointing. Thank you.
Councillor Thaxter, would you like to put your question to Councillor McVeigh?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Given the findings of the recent RBKC Regulatory Housing Report, which reveals prolonged neglect and failure to maintain council-managed properties to an acceptable standard, can the lead member explain what factors led to this sustained decline in conditions and what oversight mechanism failed to identify and address these issues sooner?
Thank you, Councillor Thaxter. I'm afraid I disagree with your portrayal of our housing system, because we all know that when the TMO was brought in-house in 2018, the condition of our homes were definitely not in a good repair, and they did need a huge amount of work. So we have focused on critical building safety measures to do that, including fire safety. And as the leader has said, we have committed over £700 million worth to a major programme over 10 years for all our council homes, and we're already halfway through it. I mean, as you'll know, in North Kensington, Henry Dickens Estate and Swinbrook Estate is home to well over 400 homes. They've all had their major works done, which includes roofs, new windows, drainage, some kitchens and bathrooms where they are needed. And regarding particularly to our the regulator report, the regulator, we did self-refer about our decency and our information about the decency. I quote the report. The regulator said, "We are good on the safety aspect. We demonstrated the outcomes across all main areas of health and safety compliance, including gas, fire, electrical, water, asbestos lifts and smoke, and carbon monoxide detection were good." They also went on to say we are good on repairs, operating an effective and efficient service without a backlog of repairs and meeting targets on how quickly it responds to urgent repairs. So you're right, we did not currently meet the data requirements specific to meet the standard. But again, they said, and I quote again, that we have a reasonable understanding of our homes from other sources of information, for example, repair operatives and surveys from major works and visiting officers. So I would just like to say that our commitment is there, and we have not been standing still, and we will continue to do with our major works all over the borough. Thank you.
I'll wait till she... Okay. Councillor Thaxter, do you have a follow-up question?
I do, but I also want to address that my question wasn't answered. I asked why. And also, a third of the homes did not meet standard of decency. And also, I do have a follow-up question. It said, can the lead member also clarify whether the pattern of neglect identified in the report has disproportionately affected specific estates, housing blocks, or demographic groups? And what measures are being taken to ensure that tenants receive equitable treatment and timely improvement to their homes?
Thank you. Councillor McVeigh.
I can get back to you on the specifics regarding the specific estates, but we have done work all across the borough. I visited Pond House in Chelsea the other day. I visited Swinbrook in the north the other day. So it's all across the borough. And we focused on the buildings that needed the work the most. So that's been our priority. It's not down to any kind of postcode lottery at all. It's been absolutely where we get the most issues regarding the repairs. So that's where we've focused the work. And I wasn't quite sure what you're implying about the residents, but again, I want to quote what the regulator said about the transparency, influence and accountability standard, and which we are delivering on. The regulator found that RBKC treats tenants with fairness and respect, and holds comprehensive information about its tenants and their needs. And again, I quote, "We use tenant information to inform service delivery to understand and take account of diverse needs and tailor our services accordingly." So I hope you find that reassuring. We passed 18 out of the 20 standards. Thank you.
We now move on to item 13, which is matters of local concern raised under Standing Order 11. So I've been notified of 4 councillors, 4 members who wish to speak for up to 2 minutes on live local issues, starting with Councillor Wade.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Earls Court residents are concerned about the trend towards a 24/7 culture on Earls Court Road and how it's changing the character of the High Street. With 23 licensed premises over 0.64 kilometres from West Cromwell Road to Old Brompton Road, 2 betting shops, 2 adult gaming centres, 6 special licences. This is viewed as being excessive. Also to be considered the 27 bike delivery dependent businesses and the growing trend to bike use from supermarkets. This does not take into consideration the other licensed premises, hotels, restaurants, bars in the ward. And this is not in line with the borough's own local plan for high streets. I am requesting that the borough initiate a cumulative impact assessment for the ward based on the Westminster Cumulative Impact Zone policy. Within the zone, a council policy would make it more difficult to get a new or extend licenses for pubs, bars, and fast food outlets. Market forces may be one thing, but these businesses are no longer serving resident need, and it's become a destination location without ownership from businesses to maintain their frontages, their client groups, and security. We have a limited amount of time to develop the high street, so it can compete with the Earls Court development offer, and a CIJ would sit alongside and support the PSPO in place. Further decline in a portal area to the borough sends out the wrong message, and licensing and planning play major roles in the success or failure of the area. I ask the borough to consider a CIZ as part of the strategy to reverse the decline on Earls Court Road. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Burns.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hopefully some good news tonight. I'm pleased to update colleagues on a successful initiative in Chelsea Riverside Ward. Thank you. Delivered through Neighbourhood Community Infrastructure Levy Process, or NCIL. Local residents had raised ongoing concerns about crime and antisocial behaviour around the Tetcott Road area near Westfield Park. They wanted to feel safer in their own neighbourhood and asked for practical action to deter criminal activity. So subsequently, we submitted an NCIL bid for the installation of a CCTV camera, and I'm delighted to say that the bid was approved and the camera has now been successfully installed on a suitable lamppost in Tetcott Road. This is a great example of how NCIL funding can be used to meet genuine local needs. The CCTV is already making a difference. It's been strategically placed to help deter crime and support enforcement where needed. But most importantly, it provides reassurance and peace of mind to the local residents. One resident's already told us they feel that little bit safer and more secure in their neighbourhood. Obviously, CCTV is not the only solution. Obviously, it works best along lighting, police engagement, strong community relationships. But this installation sends a clear message. We listen to our residents, we take their concerns seriously, and we act. So I want to thank all the residents who raised this concern, this issue, and I want to thank the officers who supported the project and everyone involved in making it happen. It's a clear example of how listening to local voices and working collaboratively can have a real positive result. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Idris.
Well, we did not discuss this SO11 before, but anyway, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is my favorite part of full council because I get to do my favorite thing, which is talk about my favorite ward, Brompton and Hansdown. This time, Mr. Mayor, I want to talk about NCIL and the great work that funding allows us to deliver for our residents. We have just added 5 more CCTV cameras, bringing our ward total to 16. They now cover all the key problem areas, and because they are demountable, we can move them around to respond quickly wherever issues arise. They are also fully monitored, and our ward PC can access them in real time 24/7, 365 days. These cameras are already making a real difference. residents feel safer and businesses appreciate knowing that problem hotspots are being properly monitored. These cameras don't just deter crime, they help us respond faster and make our community feel more secure. It is a great example of how NSIL money directly improves safety and quality of life in our community. And I want to take this opportunity to thank everyone who has been involved, our residents, our Safer Neighborhood team, and the council officers who helped make this happen. It is a real team effort, and it shows what we can achieve when we listen to our community and work together. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. And Councillor Schmetterling.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The future of Notting Hill Gate. For some time, we 5 councillors sharing Notting Hill Gate as a ward boundary have been involved in plans to improve Notting Hill Gate. The difficulty is, of course, that it is an integral part of a major east-west route in and out of London. Decades ago, local residents, via the Notting Hill Improvements Group, persuaded the council to plant all those trees down the middle of the street. To mention and honour just 2 important members of this group, both former residents in Pembridge, John Scott, who was also responsible for the public toilet with flower shop on what is now known as Turquoise Island on Westbourne Grove, and former councillor David Campion, one of my distinguished predecessors. So, where are we now? Recent plans proved to be over-ambitious, but were worth airing, so to speak. I should like to thank the officers who have been involved, including those that joined us for a walkabout on the 13th of October of this year. In short, we support using the UK Shared Prosperity Fund money distributed by the previous Conservative government to improve Notting Hill Gate, and we are expecting a summary of some suitable projects shortly, perhaps more modest and achievable ones. Also, as a major aspiration for the future of Notting Hill Gate, we look forward to resurfacing parts of it and Pembridge Road, and that we will work with colleagues on all of those over the coming months. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. We now move on to item 14, which is motions. Members will know we have 6 motions printed in the agenda, but we certainly won't get to all 6. I know a lot of members are listed to speak, particularly on the first motion. I'll just remind colleagues, if someone speaking before you made the point, or makes the point that you were planning to make, don't feel obliged to repeat the same point. And that way we can get through more sort of relevant points and make better progress. So motion 1 is about the use of some pension funds. Oh, sorry. Councillor Lowry, do you have a point of order?
Not point of order. Just before you start, we do have a bit of an issue in that it's now 8:43. There are 4 statutory speeches at the beginning for the proposer, seconder, and the amendments proposer and seconder, and 3 at the end for to sum up from the proposer of the amendment, proposer of the motion, and the lead member, which is 35 minutes. And if we agree to end the debate at 9:30, we need to be a bit careful because we won't have enough time to get through any debate speakers if you are to keep to that timeline. So you just need to come up with some sort of solution to this.
So, yeah, I'd just say to whips, if the whips are generally agreed to go as far as 9:30, and we want to take this motion, which would be preferable, I'll just need to conclude the debate early if we're running out of time, unless whips want to extend it further. But I'd need sort of agreement on that.
That's fine, but I think if we're getting pretty close, that we can just go over a bit. I don't think we need to stop at a hard stop.
Okay.
And if everybody keeps the 3 minutes, we should be fine.
Yes. Okay. Well, you've heard it from the whips. Try and keep speeches to 3 minutes if you can. We'll make progress. If we're not making enough progress, we might have to conclude the debate early and move to a vote. Right, motion 1 is about the use of some pension fund money for temporary accommodation. Would Councillor Gardner formally move the motion and Councillor Mackover second?
I beg to move, Mr. Mayor.
I beg to second, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Gardner, would you like to speak?
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, Kensington and Chelsea, along with other London boroughs, are facing an unprecedented demand and supply issue of temporary accommodation in the face of ever-increasing homelessness requests. In the financial year 2024-25, the overspend on temporary accommodation has been 4.9 million. So as an additional 5.7 million was added to the 25-26 budget, with £500,000 earmarked for each of the following 3 years. And yet the recent Q3 revenue monitoring figures have shown that in Q3 alone, we are 1.76 million over budget again on additional accommodation. London Council's recently published analysis, which shows that across London, they are spending £5.5 million a day on homelessness. And that's up from 4.2 million in 2023-24. The net expenditure on homelessness in London has risen by 42% since last year, and yet the rest of England, the rise is 16%. Under the Housing Act, we have a general duty to make accommodation available for homeless applicants, where we owe them a full housing duty. And at the moment, the Council's average net loss when providing temporary accommodation, and that's the difference between the rent we pay the landlord and the amount we can claim back, is around £174 per household per week. As an income stream from the temporary accommodation rents remains fixed at 90% of the 2011 local housing allowance rates. This means that any rise in the cost of temporary accommodation has a direct impact on the net cost to the Council of this service. It's simply not sustainable. We've seen that the number of homelessness applications in Kensington and Chelsea outpace national trends, and yet despite this, as a borough, we have regularly outperformed many other London councils in preventing and relieving homelessness. Successful interventions such as helping residents stay in their homes, or for example, moving into private rented accommodation sector. I'm pleased to say that we've significantly reduced the numbers from this summer, or which were 2,050, to 1,908. Yet at the same time, we are facing a decreasing supply of temporary accommodation. 90% of the council's temporary accommodation is secured from managing agents, mostly leased from private landlords, and increasingly we're seeing more and more of these premises being withdrawn from the market. I read an interesting article in the Saturday Times where several landlords were quoting as saying that they left their properties en masse for years to agents such as Serco, Clearspring and Mears for Home Office allocations. It did make me wonder whether these were properties that were once available to councils like ours for 2 or 3 year leases. The challenge of ever-rising costs, less supply and our desire that temporary accommodation the council uses meets all the relevant fire and decency standards have led us as a council to set out in the 2025-30 housing strategy our wish to provide a diverse supply of housing and actively explore new ways of unlocking outside investment, including through working with private sector organisations and institutional investors such as pension funds. Councillor Will has been key in looking at possible options as the lead member for property, along with Councillor Marshall, who chairs the Investment Committee, and an officer in our property team, David Allen. They have been looking at the challenges of whether this is feasible to use the pension funds in a wise investment manner, given the fiduciary duties owed to members of the pension fund, while also providing stable and available housing to safe and decent standards, where the council can pay to use this as temporary accommodation. Under this scheme, we have an opportunity to get the economics to work, so the cost is reduced and the assets bring in a suitable and stable investment return as rent and as a capital asset for the pension fund. This innovative scheme by a Conservative council may well be a model copied by other councils to help tackle the challenge of a temporary accommodation. I believe our council should give thanks to Councillors Will and Marshall, the Investment Committee and officers alike for their work on this to date and in making it a success. Thank you.
Councillor Mackover, would you like to speak?
Thank you, yes. Just very briefly, thank you. Following Councillor Gardner's comprehensive remarks, I thought I'd just note as an Investment Committee member a little bit about how we operate. We work with advisors to select and monitor strong long-term investments. Property rental income can provide a suitable long-term return, and the fund already holds a number of properties directly and is advised by professional real estate managers. So I understand now that the details of any future investments are being very carefully considered so that any properties that are purchased fully meet the fund's investment objectives. But as the motion says, this is also consistent with the government's levelling up policy. Thank you.
So I now call on Councillor Simmons to move and Councillor Ali to second the amendment on page 9 of the additional papers.
I wish to move.
I beg to second, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I now invite Councillor Simmons to speak for up to 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We are proposing this amendment to the motion in order to include important context for a motion which is otherwise in danger of reading like an exercise in self-congratulation, self-promotion and denial. This is quite unseemly in the circumstances and not in keeping with our commitments to cultural change, and would send a very poor message to our residents that we are a council whose smugness and arrogance still truly knows no bounds. As Councillor Campbell has famously said, if Grenfell didn't change you, when are you ever going to change? I don't believe the unamended motion is a fair reflection of the proposer, and I hope that it is not a fair reflection on this Conservative Council, which is committed to change. There might be those who will say, oh, but Claire, these things in your amendment are not so relevant to the motion. We will vote against it. To which I would reply, the housing disaster that was Grenfell should be relevant to everything we do in housing. Otherwise, how can we expect to learn the lessons we have promised to, or honour our commitments to the Grenfell Tower inquiry? I thought I heard Councillor Campbell say that Grenfell is at the heart of everything you do. And the motion itself refers to the importance of safe and decent homes. Let's not forget we are a council with a C3 rating on decency. It is a serious omission not to offer any assurances at all about that particular elephant in the room. As a council, we should be mature enough and secure enough not to shy away from or gloss over difficult realities, even when acknowledging the positive and innovative work we are doing for our residents. When describing the achievements of this Conservative Council, we must never forget or omit why we are striving to be the best council, namely the loss of 72 lives and the factors within this Conservative Council which led to that. When claiming to understand the importance of safe and decent homes, we absolutely should underline our commitment to achieving compliance on that score. We hear regularly from residents in the public speaking, as we've done again today, with concerns about culture. I fear that this motion, if unamended, represents, perhaps unintentionally, a prime example of what is wrong with this Conservative Council's culture: unrepentant, defensive, boastful, misleading, preoccupied with appearance, lacking in insight, and unable or unwilling to acknowledge uncomfortable facts. As human beings, no one is perfect, and no one expects you to be. This motion, if amended, becomes a responsible, well-balanced way to celebrate something innovative and beneficial that the Council is doing for homeless households. It will demonstrate a council whose members are capable of learning and change, capable of candour, capable of seeing the whole picture, and it will be a much better advert for this Conservative Council. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Ali, would you like to speak at this point?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll make it brief, less than 3 minutes. First of all, Mr. Mayor, I would like to thank Councillor Claire Simmons for her hard work and making sure that as a Notting Dale councillor, as a Grenfell ward councillor, for the work she has put in all her entire life. And I really want to say thank her for that wonderful, excellent work that she has been doing. It's important that housing, we know housing, safe housing, decent homes and dignified homes is not just a privilege, it's a right for everyone. And when I mentioned Grenfell, exactly is why I came to this council and why I became a councillor. It is an issue that will always be remembered for our residents, and the neglect and the lack of decision-making and the responsibility that the council should have been taking, which has not been taken, and not listening to the residents and not respecting their views and not really accommodating them and taking them their moves forward, their works forward, and working with them rather than making decisions about them is what actually led to Grenfell. And we will, as we have seen, the toxic culture that has been exposed by the Grenfell inquiry. Mr. Mayor, this amendment is timely, and I think if this council were going to change and will to listen, they will pass this amendment with a pinch of salt. I'm sure it's not easy for them to hear this criticism, but it's the right thing to do, and it's the right thing to do from a councillor from the ward that the biggest disaster after the Second World War happened in our borough. We spoke about the housing. Housing itself, we know about the planning, about the environment. It's not an easy option. We know, when I remember the Chair of Housing and Communities, I remember the council is spending hundreds of millions of pounds to push with that the new homes have been built, and we know that we've been pushing that, we've been supporting. But despite that, I think it's important to remember, I know the lead member for finance you spoke about, and the only thing he cares about these days is Twitter, as he mentioned earlier. It's not about individuals and making decisions. It's about the unity. It's about us all together as the councillors, whether we agree or not. We must work together on behalf for the benefit of our residents. And I think that is a grown-up politics, not a politics of finger-pointing and not a politics of trying to get brownie points from a leadership. I think that's very, very important. And on that note, Mr. Mayor, I really want to urge this council, especially for the temporary recommendations. Temporary recommendations is difficult. People being uprooted from their homes, from their areas, from their school, from their environment. Having said that, we all acknowledge that supporting in our residents, however difficult it is to move to somewhere else, it's at least giving them a roof over their head so that students or the children can actually travel and have a safe home during the winter especially. But my point here is that we need to make it very, very clear that as a council, when we use pension fund and when we use our money, not to be seen as a developer. This is the right point. We should not be seen as a developer, but a council that's providing a 21st century and not benefiting for the disaster for our communities that's going through. And we should be aiming for every penny, to scrutinize every penny of it, to make sure that we are supporting our residents and not to be seen, not even we're doing, not to be seen and doing the right thing to support our residents and not to think as developers, but as the council providing service fit for 21st century, service that we can be proud of for children who grow up in this borough and beyond can look back that we were part of that decision and not to be seen as just a tick box. These are human beings, their lives are in danger, and we need to do that. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
There's an error with the amendment. Thank you. I'm now going to
Mr. Mayor.
Sorry, Councillor Lowry.
Yes. The way the amendment's printed in the paper, just to make it clear, the word conservative, that wasn't part of our amendment. That was Councillor Gardner's original wording, but it looks as if in the amendment that we've added that word. We did not. So the word conservative is not part of the amendment. That's Councillor Gardner's words.
I think that's clear, and we'll make sure that's reflected in the minutes. So I'm now going to open the motion up to debate, and remember, if you can, as the whip suggested, keep it within 3 minutes. That'll just allow more members to speak on this. So a number of people have indicated that they want to speak. Start with Councillor McVeigh. Oh, well, sorry, you were first on my list, but I will go to Councillor Marshall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You all know how often I speak at council meetings, so I will try and keep this slightly short. The latest valuation of our pension fund is somewhere over £2 billion. The liabilities we have in our pension fund, and it is a rather dark art to actuaries' practice, but is around £1 billion. So I'm sure you can do the maths. That means we have around £1 billion in assets beyond that required to meet the liabilities. How has this occurred? Well, it's occurred actually because we've stayed invested in risk assets, and particularly in equities. And we've been able to do this because we've had a strong funding position. And that strong funding position goes back actually decades. It goes back to this council making adequate provision for pensions for very, very many years. And I would like to say, rather embarrassingly, this motion even mentions me by name, but I would like to say, actually, I think that's very much a team effort. It's a team effort for councillors over very many years, and indeed it's a cross-party effort. So I think this is something that this council as a whole should take credit for. But having £1 billion sit in a pension fund, once we've been made absolutely sure that we can pay pensions, is not why we made those contributions. We made those contributions to make sure the pensions were paid, but after that, this is public money, and it is for the benefit of our residents ultimately. So it's right that we look very prudently to use it for the public good. And I believe that the proposals that we're considering do that in relation to temporary accommodation. Having said that, as Councillor Mackover has pointed out, the Investment Committee's charge has a fiduciary duty to ensure that anything that we invest in, its primary purpose is to ensure pensions are paid. And the investment that we will be making in buildings meets that test. This is a good investment. It's one that meets our investment objectives, whilst also allowing us to take advantage of some of that surplus money to do public good. And I therefore wholeheartedly stand behind that. I would just note that from March, under legislation passed by this government, we will lose control over making investments of this type. So sadly, we won't be able to repeat this exercise in the future. However, we will remain in charge of strategy. I can say, I'm sure everyone on the committee, now and in the future, will want to repeat the success we've had. And we'll do that by maintaining our focus on keeping costs down, ensuring that we invest in the right assets that generate a good return over the long term, and that we will not fall foul to whatever the latest fad is that others unfortunately have. So again, I would just say it's rather embarrassing to be thanked by the motion. I would extend that to many others. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McVeigh.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Councillor Marshall. As you said, team effort. What has been really fantastic to see here for this is the ability of the Council to solve a problem by working across many different teams. So for a long time, we've all known about the temporary accommodation problem. My predecessor tried to actually buy a property for our temporary accommodation residents. We weren't able to finance it because of the complications with our funding and our lack of funding. And so the pension fund came up with this, which is absolutely excellent. And I have to really take umbrage with you, Councillor Simmons, about you saying there's something smug in this motion. I completely disagree with that in the most politest way, that this motion is helping those who are waiting in temporary accommodation for years and years. It is helping people who are in hotels, in B&Bs, in hostels. They're the people that we need to really, really care about and look for. And as a caring Conservative council, this is exactly what we are doing. The wait for a 3-bed home is currently 5 years. So this is absolutely right and proper we are doing this. And as Councillor Gardner says, I'm mindful not to repeat it, but I would really like to congratulate our housing team that we have now got the numbers in our temporary accommodation to under 2,000 for the first time in years. And again, as Councillor Gardner said, this is due to our excellent prevention work, one of the best in London, our really rigorous allocation policies, and which we are not going to be stalling on that. You know, we have a very, very strict allocation policies that prioritise local long-term RBKC residents and our most vulnerable people. So just to say briefly, we will continue to reduce our hotel use. It's very costly and it's unfit for families. And actually, as London We are completely leading on this. We used to have over 200 households in commercial hotels. We are now down to just 3. So we are also doing our share. So this talked about the issues financially. That's absolutely well known. It's reported widely on the news all the time. And so I'd just like to say that this motion shows that RBKC can solve a problem by looking around corners and by working together. And it is a completely, I have to say, conservative way of looking at things with fiscal responsibility. And we are not just expecting the government to bail us out. We are actually looking to see what we can do to solve this problem. So thank you very much for bringing this, and thank you very much for everyone who's worked on this.
Councillor Dent-Coad.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I assure you nobody will be saying what I'm saying tonight. And just to say that Councillors Ahmed and Benton would also like to speak if there's time. So I'd like to kick off by commenting on the ridiculousness of putting forward a motion to Council that does not include any kind of motion. This is not a decision-making motion, and we are not. All that we are agreeing upon is whether or not we congratulate ourselves here. This is an opportunity for the Council to crow about their supposed achievements in advance of the local elections, and we've been hearing it all night. And God help us, there's going to be more of this empty posturing in months to come, I'm sure. I understand the key decision to use £100 million of my pension to buy homes for temporary accommodation was approved in June. I have a pension, tiny pension from the council, and subsequently by the investment committee in July. This is all done and dusted. The pension fund will acquire the properties, and then a lease type of arrangement will make them available to the council for financial return. This is phrased thus: homes are, quote, to be used by the council for temporary accommodation or rehousing homeless households into suitable and settled private rented homes. Noted there are further hurdles to come in notably setting up the special purpose vehicle, but this is going to be waved through with huge enthusiasm. So why the concern from some? Mr. Mayor, I've done a review of our efforts to sign over our duty of care to other boroughs, which is what we're doing. And incredibly, since 2010, according to my calculations, we've already spent, with using our own money, an incredible £68 million on purchase of properties outside the borough. So in addition to the current plans, we would have spent £170 million getting rid of homeless families. So who are these homeless families? According to a recent report by Shelter called My Colour Speaks Before Me, a majority of homeless households are from ethnic minority backgrounds, quite simply because they are shamefully the most likely to suffer persistent low income. Not only are low-income ethnic minority households more likely to end up in temporary accommodation, they also, according to the research by Shelter, spent longer, up to twice as long, in temporary accommodation than white households. Interestingly, the Equality Impact Assessment for this key decision has completely ignored this shameful statistic, but states a clear no to the question, does your programme have the potential to disproportionately affect people of a particular race or ethnicity? We should have said yes, and we should have had an explanation for that. There is also plenty of evidence that living long-term in temporary accommodation damages physical and mental health, upsets family and friends networks, employment and study are disrupted, and there are considerably worse life outcomes as a result. We know this. Clearly, the hard work has been done and cannot be undone, but let's make this clear. There are vacant sites for development owned by the council. They've been put on hold. I asked the relevant officer why we were doing this, rather than bringing these vacant sites forward for social housing, and the response was honest but stark, and I quote, "First is the fact that the pension fund investment requires a return to be made from day one, whereas investment in new build homes wouldn't generate income for years. And second, social rents are lower than local housing allowance rents." And it was also noted, I quote, "families in social rented housing need to apply for housing benefit. The Conservative leadership, under the guise of good stewardship, are proudly promoting the wholesale removal of low-income ethnic minority communities from our borough and forcing them to rely on housing benefit from which the council will make a profit by milking the system. That's how it looks to some of us. Nothing to crow about. And while we approve of the amendment of the Labour group, we cannot support this motion. The Independent group will not be supporting this motion of self-praise. Thank you.
Councillor Taylor-Smith, would you like to speak?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I've lots of black pen over this, taking things out and putting quite a lot, and I could rabbit on a lot about what you said, Councillor Dentcote, but I think I'll just try and keep it to the motion. So, Mr. Mayor, thanks go to Councillor Gardner-Mackover for this original motion, and this motion recognises that we are London's leading innovative approach we're taking to reduce the pressure of temporary accommodation on our finances. And this is something that other councils, including our neighbours in Westminster, are looking to follow. And we take that responsibility of providing good, decent accommodation to people, albeit it has to be temporary because we don't have the stock ourselves, very, very responsibly. And it's something we have to be innovative and bold. We've got to think outside the box. And thank you for all the statistics. I won't go into the 2 billion a year, but again, just to come back on Councillor Martian, yes, it is a team effort, but that team requires leadership. And I just have to compliment you. Oh, he's disappeared. As I'm talking away, he's gone to the loo. Anyway, I just have to compliment you on the leadership as far as the prudency of the, and also to Councillor Emma Will, in terms, who have led the way on this approach. So, when I look at the amendment that's been presented, I think I'm really sad about it because the first part of it, which is about recognising Grenfell and our commitment to Grenfell, absolutely 100% agree with that. But it's a shame the motion didn't start there. Because what I'm not clear on, Mr. Mayor, and I say this with the greatest respect, is that the role of the opposition think that the regulator has on the provision of temporary accommodation. So the short answer is they don't have one. Yeah. It would be hoped the opposition would have been more aware of this. But on this side of the chamber, we will continue to work at what we're doing. We will continue on making these big decisions and lead the way, delivering on our priorities, providing decent homes for our residents, and I'll be voting against this amendment.
Standing Order 28, Mr. Mayor. That's not what we have not said that the regulator has responsibility over temporary accommodation. This is not a controversial amendment. It's not. It doesn't do what he said it does.
Councillor Laurie, I mean, we've got a few more speakers, including Labour speakers, to go through, so counterpoints can be addressed in those speeches. Councillor Wade.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's acknowledged that there's a London-wide temporary accommodation crisis and that the cut in central government fair funding review to local authorities will be a problem to the borough. But some of the present financial problems RBKC faces are of the council's own making. Debt has skyrocketed by more than 160 million, the majority of which is unconnected with the exceptional circumstances of Grenfell. It is quoted that the borough's total debt at the end of this financial year jumped by 161.5 million to 503.5. This debt increase in RBKC is the third largest of any London borough. This is completely unsustainable. Our concern, and the motion to get temporary accommodation is worthy, our concern is that RBKC has a lamentable track record in acquisition. 14 leases acquired for properties for Grenfell survivors were not used, sat on, and not disposed of. I think it's in the making. Refurbishment. To start a project on the West Lancaster's estate project with an £89 million gap, and we don't even know what the final figures are going to be on that. And in new build, Kelso Cochrane House, Silchester Arches, Barbary Road and Acklam Road falling behind schedule, over budget or not fit for purpose. This makes us concerned about the success of the proposed arrangements by which 100 million from the RBKC Pension Fund will be used to purchase 250 homes to solve the temporary accommodation issues. It is clear that we don't have the skill sets at present to reassure safe return on this investment. Where is the stock of new houses going to be? Where is the due diligence to ensure that they are compliant with regulations? Where are the safeguards put in place to ensure that the pension fund is secure and provided? And where is the detailed breakdown of the transaction costs related to the fund established an SPV? We need transparency and a breakdown of the advisors and their fees and the tendering process through which they were selected. Central to the primary function of the council is to deliver services to residents, and these services are ultimately put at risk by mismanagement. This can only lead to massive cuts on frontline services, staff redundancies, and even the maintenance of borough homes, and or increase in council tax. Acknowledge the scale of the problem, so increased debt is not taken business as usual, and publish a plan so residents can see the general direction of future cuts, so decisions can be made today. Ultimately, it's the individual pension plan members who are the owner of the pension fund, and not the council, and have they been consulted?
Thank you, Councillor. I have a quick question for the whips, just given the time, as you predicted, Councillor Lowry. We're not going to realistically get through all the speakers tonight. My suggestion is that we get through two more speakers as listed, which is Councillor Hargreaves and Councillor Bakhtiar. And then we move to the lead member, Councillor Will, Councillor Simmons and Councillor Gardner for the summaries. Do you agree with that?
Mr. Mayor, I wasn't allowed to speak.
Okay. Well, the next one
It's
on my
Councillor
list
Lindsay, I
is
think.
Councillor Lindsay. Would you like to take Councillor Hargreaves' space? So we'd have Councillor Bakhtiar, then Councillor Lindsay. Yes. Okay. Is that agreed by the whips? Yeah. In which case, just because we will go past a little bit past 9:30, could you move Standing Order 24.01 to allow us to extend to by 10 minutes if necessary? Yep. Could you move? Second. Is that agreed? Agreed. Fantastic. So, so those standing orders 12 and 22 are suspended. Right. So I now move to Councillor Bakhtiar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would make it very short. Before speaking to the motion, I would like to share with you that I am standing down voluntarily, and it has been a real privilege to work with you, both sides of the chamber, past and present. I have learned a lot in the past 12 years, and I think there are many ways in which if somebody wants to serve his or their communities, and I'm sure I'll find a way to contribute what I have learned in here. I would like to thank particularly Councillor Mary-Teresa Rossi. It was a privilege serving with you as your deputy when you were our mayor. And I would like to thank as well the Councillor David Lindsay. He's been very helpful. And every single one I've worked with, they've been very pleasant. Whenever I have asked a question, my past Labour councillors, when I was new, I used to ask them regularly, councillors Judith Blakeman, Pat Healy, who are not with us right now. So it's been a long journey, and there is an end for everything, but this end could lead to a new chapter in serving our communities in a different way. Coming back to the motion, in my view, it's a good motion. The amendment is a good amendment, but I want to ask for one single thing. Make sure to invest this money in the borough, buy properties in the borough, so our people, displaced people, those in temporary accommodation who can stay in the borough. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Bactria. And as regards your initial points, I'm sure all members will wish you the very best in your future endeavours, and no doubt you'll continue to serve your community. Councillor Lindsay.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. And Councillor Hargreaves, thank you for allowing me to go in your place. This Mr. Mayor, this debate is about temporary accommodation. Simply put, more houses are needed. They need to be built, and I agree with Councillor Bakhtiar, ideally in KNC, but they also need to be financed. Mr. Mayor, and I speak in this debate in my capacity as chairman of the Pensions Committee. For many people, their pension is their second most valuable asset after their home. Kensington and Chelsea, as a council, is fortunate that our pension fund is well funded. Indeed, if it were not, this debate could not be taking place. Councillor Marshall has given the latest information about the pension surplus, roughly £1 billion. And this surplus should reassure pensioners that their pensions are in good hands. I recall a number of years ago, the late Councillor Andrew Dalton saying in this chamber that one reason people came here to Kensington Chelsea Council to work is because we have a good reputation as an employer. And he carried on that we need to ensure that that reputation is maintained. Being a good employer clearly includes ensuring that payment of pensions is made in full. And I know that Councillor Marshall has acknowledged, would acknowledge, and absolutely does acknowledge that it was the late Councillor Andrew Dalton whose work on the Investment Committee helped lay the foundations for the Investment Committee's strength. Mr. Mayor, local authorities have a legal duty to provide temporary accommodation to homeless households qualifying for support under housing law. They also have a duty to balance their budgets at the end of the year and to provide other services. Overall, I commend this initiative to the Council. It is not risk-free, no asset is risk-free, and indeed nothing in life is risk-free. So due oversight into the whole governance and investment process is essential, not least to ensure that pensioner confidence is maintained. That means checks and balances, and maybe more so. It means hearing and responding to difficult questions, and if necessary, being willing to change course. But it also means, if we have done the necessary and more due diligence satisfactorily, that we proceed. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor, and apologies to all other councillors who were hoping to speak before we ran out of time. So I now invite Councillor Will, as lead member, to respond to the debate for up to 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I will try, as I usually do, to be brief and cut out great swathes of things I was planning to say. I want to start just by thanking Councillor Gardner for proposing this motion and Councillor Mackinder for seconding it, and indeed all those who have spoken eloquently. I particularly want to actually thank Councillor Taylor-Smith, who did indeed get this most recent work going with a particular purchase he had in mind. And of course, it is very much a team effort. Many, many people of many years have been involved in making sure that we've got the monies in our pension fund to be this innovative. I cannot stress enough, homelessness and providing temporary accommodation is the biggest social and financial problem in London at the moment. It's costing London councils, all London councils, Labour and Conservatives, over £1 billion a year. It is the problem is simply unsustainable. And this is why Other councils want to know what we're doing, including Labour councils. They're not coming up with the kind of things we're hearing. They just want to solve this problem because they know the acute human suffering it is causing for families. Most of the people in temporary accommodation are families who do not have access to long-term decent housing. As Councillor McVeigh said, we have worked very hard to try and manage the problem. And I thank officers for the work they've done in that. We've been very strong in that. But of course, there is also the other side of the supply, that's the demand. There's also a supply problem, which is almost impossible for us to solve because taxation and excessive legislation are ensuring that landlords are leaving the market in droves. So we know there's a problem and we want to help the people suffering this problem. And so we have come up with this innovative solution because we just, and we need to get on and do something. And by the way, all of these people who've suggested tonight, why don't we build our way out of it? It's impossible. We know how long it takes to build properties. It's usually a 2 to 3 year lead time. By buying good quality properties in London, and by the way as well, most of these people in temporary accommodation aren't living in the borough at the moment because it's unaffordable. So what we're trying to do is to provide them with a decent quality of home that we, the council, will be able to oversee as soon as possible. I cannot understand why anybody in this chamber would not agree to that and this motion. And I will sum up by saying, Mr. Mayor, you know an idea is a good one when others try to copy it. Therefore, I was particularly delighted to see last week Westminster City Council took a paper through their investment committee basically trying to do exactly the same thing. Where an efficient, innovative and forward-thinking Conservative council leads, Labour always follows.
Yeah. Councillor Simmons, as mover of the amendment, would you like to respond to the debate for up to 5 minutes?
I would. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And thank you to everybody who contributed and participated in the debate. I wanted to thank especially Councillor Marshall, Councillor Dent-Code, Councillor Wade for their important and factual contributions. Particularly the contribution from Councillor Dent-Code is extremely troubling, and if any of what she says is correct, I would expect this council to be looking into that urgently in terms of equality impact assessment. I wanted to tip my hat to Councillor Taylor-Smith, who appears to have misunderstood the amendment, which is a shame, but I'll move on quickly then. Just to sum up what the amendment is all about. In voting on this amendment, I think there are 3 questions that we should be asking ourselves. Number 1, do you agree with Councillor Campbell's commitment that Grenfell is at the heart of everything we do? And do you agree with the Council's Grenfell Tower inquiry commitments? Second, do you agree with the Council's published response to the social housing regulator? And third, do you agree that the Council should take the opportunity afforded here to acknowledge and reconfirm both of those 2 points above, or do you prefer to reject that opportunity and thereby cast doubt on the Council's sincerity in both? I hope you will not let the fact that it's a minority amendment cloud your judgment on this. Making the right decision for the Council and for residents is far too important to let party politics get in the way. I hope that the Council will accept this amendment in the spirit in which it is offered, to make this motion a better reflection of the commitments we have made and of who we are and who we aspire to be, both as a Council and as people. I therefore hope that you will all vote in favour of this amendment. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Excuse me. Excuse me. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gardner, as mover of the original motion, I now invite you to respond to the debate for up to 5 minutes.
Thank you, everybody who's contributed. I think it's been a very useful debate. Councillor McIver, I think, has really flagged that this really is a consistent levelling up. This is very consistent with the levelling up policy, both of the government and indeed our own council action plan. I'm sorry to say I actually think Councillor Simmons has misunderstood the purpose of my motion, which is all about seeking a financial and practical solution to a shortage and an ever-rising cost of temporary accommodation. You didn't speak, Councillor Benton, so please don't say. So as regards I think with regards to Councillor Ali's comment about... Sorry, if you wished to speak, you could have registered, Mr Benton, Councillor Benton, and you did not. You did not speak. No, but don't interrupt me. Please be polite.
Councillor Benton.
Councillor Ali had commented that
Councillor Benton,
he doesn't want us
through
to
the chair, please. Councillor Gardner, please go ahead.
Councillor Ali has said he doesn't want us to become a developer, and I think that's very clear from what Councillor Will has said, that that's not practical. I believe that actually Councillor McVeigh has really summed it up very well, that the intention of this solution that we have found is that actually it's a cross-council initiative, across departments, across teams, to come up with a real solution to solve a real problem. And I know Emma said we shouldn't be crowing about it. Actually, I think we should be very proud, because I think it is, as Emma has said, the biggest and social and financial problem in London, and we have seen it repeatedly come to the Housing Community Select Committee, that actually financially the pain that is pushed because so much money has to go on trying to find a solution to the problem, that actually that money would be better off spent on providing services. So actually, if we can come up with a home solution, and I do agree with Councillor Moe that if we could afford to buy in the borough, that would be the best solution. I think we will leave that to the investment committee to look at what is the most effective. But I also believe that this council wishes people to live in safe and decent housing. And I do accept Councillor Simmons' concerns that actually that should be first and foremost. And we, in our temporary accommodation, and what we do seek these days, is very much that we go out to the marketplace and we set ourselves a higher bar in the temporary accommodation that we take now, and we wish to ensure that by this investment property, or whether it's more than one, will actually meet that high bar from the outset, and therefore be in our control and be of a decent and provide a stable living accommodation. So I'm sorry very much, Mo, to hear you're standing down. I've very much enjoyed your company and your contributions over the years. I hope we'll have a proper time to thank you and others, I'm sure, in the coming months. Can I just reiterate my thanks to everybody who's taken part tonight. I also say to Councillor Marshall and Councillor Will and all the officers who've been involved that actually I think this innovative scheme is something that I'm pleased other councillors are following, because if it does help us all to solve a really costly and I don't want to just focus on cost, because it isn't that I want temporary accommodation at any cost or at low cost. I want good, stable, safe, standard temporary accommodation that we can control, and that we can then use the money that we are currently having to throw at getting temporary accommodation at Highfield. Thank you, Councillor Jennett, but thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Right. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, councillors. I will now put the amendment to the vote. Would all those for the amendment please show? Would those against the amendment please show? Are there any abstentions to the amendment? I declare the amendment not carried. I will now put the original motion to the vote. Would all those for the motion please show? Would all those... Colleagues, would all those against the motion please show? Are there any abstentions to the motion? Abstentions? Colleagues, we're almost at the end of the meeting, please. I declare the motion carried. Okay. We now proceed to item 15. Do the group whips have any amendments to propose? This is appointments to committees or outside organisations. No. Item 16, urgent business. There is no urgent business. That concludes the business of this evening's meeting of the Council. The next meeting of the Council is scheduled to be held on the 3rd of December, starting at 6:30 p.m. Good evening.